I'm thankful that I am a student of him. So please, sir, welcome, sir. Welcome to this FDP, and I'm very happy that you have accepting our invitation.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Okay, I welcome to our Vice Chancellor, sir, of CV Raman Global University. Yeah, good morning, sir, and welcome to this FDP program. And he's our role model because I know he is a very intellectual person. And in whenever inauguration session, Anup will be tell about him. So I welcome you, sir, and I welcome you, Dr. Priyadarshi Kanungo, Dean Engineering of C.V. Raman Global University, and he's the eminent personality of our institute because he is the only person who is taking care of all the students and faculties in their by heart. And I'm welcome you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for so kind
And
words.
okay, sir. Actually, I'm welcome you all the participants, all the dignitaries once again. And I just share my slides for my department. I will show some slides on that. So, can I share,
Yeah,
Anu?
just a minute, madam. I'm stop my presentation. Yeah.
Okay.
Now you can, madam, you can share.
So, our university is on. Previously, it is C.V. Raman College of Engineering. Now, it is C.V. Raman Global University. And in the chemical,
We know it.
yes. So it is we have Sibiraman society. One society is also there, and also we are the members of the Indian Institute of Chemical Engineers. So this is our campus.
Must change. We know
Uh,
that.
this is our facilities for the laboratories and process automation training centers, AutoCAD centers, ChemCAD training centers, and some of the laboratory and libraries as our facilities. So these are the different laboratories we have in our campus. So these are basically used for our institute for the academic purpose as well as the research purpose. These are the some of the instruments we have taken for this institute, and it will be working for the both the purposes. It will be solved there, and it is our center of excellence. That is, trainers and trainees are there. Yeah, it is also by Biju Patnaik Center of Excellence for the Water Technology, because in the year 2019 we have. In the world skill water technology part, we have won the first prize in the world. So Astos Naran is our student who will own this prize. From that point of view, the Odisha State Center has given this Center of Excellence for the Biju Patnaik Center of Excellence for the water technology. And it is proud of us that from the in not only Odisha but also in India, it is the first university who will get the first prize or own the first prize in the world skill in 2019, which was conducted in Russia. So these are the placement our few recruiters who will be giving the placement to our students. This is the placement records for our different years pass out students. So in this year also, some of the students have already got the jobs, and some of the students will also gone for the GATE and higher studies. And also we have not only the academic point of view. We have also have some research work in our campus, and in this research work the students are basically involved in this. And from that point of view, we have already fund some of the funded project we got from different agencies. And now it is working, our some of the projects also working in our department as well as in the different departments like mechanical and science, means physics, chemistry, and other departments also. So our campus is a full-time job 24/7, because all the students and faculties are very much interested in academic as well as the research oriented, and they have also got some different prizes in hackathon. My students are also getting some prizes in hackathon because they are doing their jobs in research and research oriented. So we are not lacking of anything, and we will trying our best that we will not lack of anything, and we will be the good university in the world also. We have also NIRF ranking in between 100 also. We have the accredited by NAC and NB also. So this is the Vasusnaran, our student who we got the gold in world skill competition in water technology at Russia, Kazakhstan in 2019. So with this, I will thanks to the audience, and they have given me the chance to deliver my department to their. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Anok.
Now I request the chairperson of Faculty Development Program, Professor B.S. Narayan, our Vice Chancellor, sir, to deliver his address. So before delivering the address, so I must pick some few lines about him. So Professor Narayan holds a PhD in electrical engineering from Cambridge University, UK. He has 35 years of experience working in industry, R&D institution, policy planning and academics in India, Japan, and UK. And he's working with global partners including USA, Germany, Singapore, European Union, Russia, and China. He has published over 175 papers in journals and conference proceedings. He holds 4 patents and also filed another 10 patents. He also won multiple awards for
It's okay.
leadership, technology development, research, and industrial academic
Nice.
engagement. Sir, please, sir.
Yeah. First of all, good morning, everyone. And we would like to thank all the participants, and even more importantly, our guests for the event today, Professor Biswal and Dr. Nanda, Dean Engineering, my colleagues, and all our other participants who have joined here. It's indeed a pleasure for me to be part of this program. I think the whole university seriously believes in inclusive and sustainable development. And therefore, I'm happy to say that as a university, everything that we do, I think, comes within this contour of a sustainable development or say circular economy. And therefore, it's very critical. And the opportunities, if I simply say circular economy, depending on who is talking about it, the opportunities can be 1 trillion to 5 trillion in the coming just decade. Similarly, if you're talking of manufacturing, again, depending on the prediction of the people speaking about it, it can be a few 100 billion to 500 billion just in the next 5 to 6 years. That is the type of opportunity we talk of when we talk of circular economy and advanced manufacturing. And both of them, I mean, Industry 4.0, and all of them have to, it has to move towards circular economy. It is very critical that we use clean energy and we work with waste management. And the best part is, all of this does not necessarily always call for entirely new technology. It is more about innovation and adaptation, design and development of existing material process system with a bit of orientation towards advanced manufacturing and circular economy. And therefore, a far better opportunity to move forward, create innovation, create entrepreneurial opportunity, and definitely, if I'm an academic, opportunity for research. And overall, as students, I think make sure that we make them, with a multidisciplinary system and design thinking approach, making them employable, or as we said, even become innovators, researchers, and entrepreneurs. It's a unique opportunity that comes up, and somewhere we need to get this idea, and therefore we always say, let us not miss the woods for the trees while very focusedly looking at independent material process technology, or blindly imitating something that happens in other part of the world. If India is already, say, depending on whose prediction, on which area we are number one or number two in terms of manufacturing, agricultural produce, material extraction. So, and in all of them, I think there are a huge amount of opportunity for innovation, research, and also exciting the students, as also giving interesting opportunity for faculty. That's why when we even went for this workshop, we said, even as we talk of green technology and waste management, everybody speaks about it. Let us make sure we call it as an integrated approach to equally linking it to Industry 4.0 and, say, circular economy. Because as I said, it's a huge opportunity, and we need to start right from now and start again working with a multidisciplinary approach. Otherwise, we will never get there. And it is actually low-hanging fruit, where we could be even leaders, in adaptation, implementation, and moving forward. And so we are very happy to state that as a university, as Dr. Ranjita already mentioned, we have created a unique academic pedagogy where skilling and knowledge are linked together with experiential learning to give true understanding in the first instance, and competence to leverage this knowledge in a multidisciplinary way through multiple assignments and project-based learning. And this is, I think, quite unique. And to enable it, we have today about 25 advanced centers featuring on future skills based on World Economic Forum's projection. And these have been established with industry. And these centers are so designed that it can train somebody who is a novice, starting from, a school dropout, to doing product process system, and even do a PhD work, or be entrepreneurial. And which is a very unique scenario in an Indian context, and getting ready for this even if you look at the global value chain today, India is one of the topmost country, due to various circumstances, we'll not go into that, but for the next few years, from investment to further expansion, innovation and entrepreneurial opportunities, India figures in the top. But for all this to leverage, I think, we seriously need to be working with a multidisciplinary approach, and especially as the whole world is moving towards sustainable development. Just now we had the COP26, or the World Climate Conference in Glasgow. I know, there is no point we crying horse that say this is unfair, but we need to leverage knowledge and technology to leapfrog, and that's the only way. Because we will be one of the first sufferers along with the islands in the Pacific, and therefore it's a huge opportunity. And we are happy that we have experts coming here and joining us today. So to highlight the type of opportunity, whether it is in green technologies, whether it is in terms of advanced manufacturing, whether it is in terms of waste management, and we would also have others showcasing more industry innovation product, and also talking of various aspects. But we would also want to highlight that it's a huge opportunity. Every institute, every university, every college, every MSME can also adapt, and we could work together as a win-win collaboration. And as I said, circular economy, depending on whose projection, somebody says it is 2 trillion, 3 trillion, somebody says 4.6 trillion by 2030. And each of the independent, manufacturing industry 4.0, again, depending on how we are looking at, but automation and advanced manufacturing or industry 4.0 is anyway going to happen. And so that's again trillions of dollars of opportunity. And all of this is essentially calling, as I said in the beginning, leveraging a multidisciplinary approach. We are trying to put that as a process in our education, and we want to learn from the experts. And we hope that every one of the participants, I'm sure at the moment we have lesser, but we have hundreds of people participating in this workshop, FDP, over the next few days. We want that all of us could work together, and we would still not exhaust the opportunities. So it is a huge opportunity for us to compete and yet collaborate and do win-win technology. And so we seriously hope to leverage this opportunity. And as I said, because we do have huge amount of infrastructure ready for fundamental learning or train the trainer or student skilling to manufacturing, we also welcome all of you, and we'll be happy to partner with every one of our experts as also our partners who are participating in this say mutual learning session of a faculty development program. And we thank AICT for giving us this opportunity to create this network of interested people who could possibly work together. I wish the program all success, and we look forward to hearing from the experts. We once again thank all our experts for kindly sparing their time and joining us for this program. And we look forward to some exciting learning and listening opportunities and definitely long-term collaboration. Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have a great program. Thanks also to all my colleagues for making it happen. Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have a great
Uh, Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insightful talk, sir. Now move on. Now I request Professor Priyadarshi Kannungo, Dean Faculty of Engineering, deliver the gathering. So before deliver the address, so I must say some word. So Professor Priyadarshi Kannungo is a professor in Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering at C.V. Raman Global University. He received the PhD degree in engineering from National Institute of Technology, Rourkela in 2010, and also he got MTech degree in Electronic System and Communication from REC Rourkela, Odisha in 2001, and he also achieved a degree in Electrical Engineering from the Institute of Engineers, Calcutta in 1997. He has more than 20 years of teaching and research experience. He has published over 50 high-end journal papers with 333 citations. Sir is an active advisor and IEEE member for more than 14 years. Sir, please.
Thank you, Professor. Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Sonal Nanda, and Honorable Guest of Honor, Dr. Surendra Kumar Biswal, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor B.S. Satyanarayan, esteemed resource persons, Head of Chemical Engineering, Professor Ranjita Mahanti, Program Coordinator, Professor Rudranarayan Mahapatra, and co-coordinators, Professor Anup Kundu and Professor Vikas Rajan. Distinguished guests, deans, heads of the department, participants, my fellow colleagues of the CGU, and friends from media, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to all of you. On behalf of CGU Odisha, I welcome all of you to this inaugural ceremony of 6 days of our faculty development program on green technology and waste management, the era of advanced manufacturing and circular economy. I am humbled and honored to introduce our university to the esteemed guests and participants of this program. The journey of C.V. Raman Global University started from 1997. In the name of we started within the name of C.V. Raman College of Engineering. Since its inception, it was developed to quality and constantly remained, if you look at quality education and training through its well-equipped smart classrooms and world-class labs. Already Dr. Mohanty shows some center of excellences and unbeatable center of excellences. So these are some of the shining feathers in the crown of C.V. Raman College of Engineering, which helped us to grow into C.V. Raman Global University in recent year, that is in 2020. So the Faculty of Engineering is the oldest faculty of CGU Odisha because it started as a engineering college. And there are 7 departments offering UG programs and 14 PG programs and PhD programs, starting from computer science engineering to marine engineering. That is one of the program which is only available in our university in Odisha also. Our students are well exposed to the latest technology and cutting edge skills through our 21 center of excellences. So
Sir,
our
you are
curriculum
mute,
is
I think.
designed. Madam, I'm not audible.
Yes, yes. So loud and clear, sir.
Yeah. So our curriculum is designed and embedded into 21st century skills through experiential learning and exposure to cutting edge skills and multidisciplinary projects. It is our pride to say that we are the first university won the gold medal for India in World Skill 2019 in Kazan, Russia. Already Dr. Mahanti discussed that, and they also informed all of you that one of our students who is actually trained in the chemical or the center of excellence and in water technology, he bagged the gold medal. So we are among the top 100 NRI ranking institutes since 2016. This is the only university in the state of Odisha offering UG and PG program in marine engineering. And although this university is newly born, it takes pride in its rich heritage, aiming to improve the scholastic ability and effectiveness of the quality education system across the globe. And that the university is committed to expanding the scope of the existing departments and also to open new ones to deliver multi and interdisciplinary courses by accelerating the present sectoral focus of its mother institute and training the trainers. If you look at now today's TP inauguration, and what is that meaning is training the trainers is one of the best practices of our university, which empower the faculties with new skills and knowledge through different thrust and cutting edge technology. In the year 2020, CGU Odisha conducted 5 ATAL FDP, and in this year, this is the second ATAL FDP we are conducting, and 2 ATAL FDP also are in the pipeline on different thrust area, and it will be conducted before the January of 2022. We are thankful to our visionary leaders, Honorable Founder, President of CGU, Sri Sanjeev Kumar Rao, Vice President of CGU, Srimati Shailaja Raut, and Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor B.S. Satyanarayana for constantly motivating and supporting the faculty members as well as all the staffs and students by providing technical and financial support to train the trainer as well as train the student also. I express my sincere thanks to ACT for financial support to organize such an interdisciplinary thrust area or FTP for our faculty as well as the faculty across the pan India, you can say. So industry people and research scholars also joining in this FDP. I am very happy to express my thanks to Dr. Ranjita Manti, HOD Chemical, and Dr. Manoj Gopale, HOD Mechanical, for their leadership in conducting different FDP and workshop looking into the need of the hour. And once again, I congratulate the coordinator, Professor Rudranarayan Mahapatra, and all the co-coordinators of the today's FDP for their efforts in organizing this FDP. And this program will provide a fruitful event for all participants, and I wish the program a grand success. Thank you all. Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
You please unmute, Mr. Kondo.
Anup, unmute yourself.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So now move on to the next speaker. Now I request the guest of honor of the FDP, Dr. S.K. Biswal, sir, to express his view on this area. So I must, before his address, I must pick some line. So Dr. S.K. Biswal has obtained BTech in Chemical Engineering from NIT Rourkela and MS from BITS Pilani. He was awarded PhD in Chemical Engineering from IIT Kharagpur. He was working as a chief scientist and head of mineral processing department at Institute of Minerals and Materials Technology, Bhubaneswar, in the area of mineral processing and extractive metallurgy. He has 1 year industrial experience prior to join R&D organization, that is chloroalkali industry. He has more than 34 years R&D experience in the field of mineral processing and extractive metallurgy. He has published more than 81 technical papers in national and international journal. He has published more than 152 technical papers in national and international symposium. He is author of chapter of 5 books. That's it about his intro, brief intro. Sir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kondo, for a nice introduction. Respected dignitaries on the dais and respected faculties and students in chemical and mechanical engineering. It gives immense pleasure to make a technical interaction with all of you, because I am also a regular visitor to your institute. Because already Mr. Kondo told, my background is mineral processing and extractive metallurgy, and topic today is green technology and waste management for the era of advanced manufacturing and circular economy, I thought that I will give the highlight about the green technology and waste management in mineral sector. As you know, Odisha is the rich in mineral sectors, and maximum industries in Odisha are based on the mineral based. What is the greening of mines? What we understand, the minerals can be processed and extracted using advanced technology with best practice to reduce the environmental impact in solid, water, and also air ecosystem of the area of the mines. To look into that, whatever actually the major minerals are available in Odisha, I will little bit highlight. If you look after the energy sector, the coal, Odisha, India has the 346 billion tons of the coal, and Odisha shares 25%. But we produce more than 40% of the coal overall because we are producing around 750 million tons. Out of that, almost we are producing 250 to 300 million tons in Odisha itself. And that is mostly the coal is going for the power sector, for generation of the power, apart from the coal going for steel, coking coal. But we have the coking coal limited, almost 250 million ton we are importing coking coal and non-coking coal for steel sectors. But if you look after the mines, because Odisha origin of the coal is the deep origin, we have high ash. Almost if you see that they call the based on the caloric value, they categorize G1 to G17, but mostly is coming high ash coal, and that is the reason our power factor, particularly for the in our power sectors, is less. That's why the government of India at present, by particularly Ministry of Coal, even also Prime Minister of his Scientific Advisory Group, they are testing now how to reduce the ash content, because greenery, though one is the non-renewable resources there, but non-renewable resources, how to reduce the carbon footprint. There is a lot of debates in different sectors going on, but in coal, one of the selective mining you can do. Particular for culture coal, our coal is banded type, layer types. When one coal layer, cell layer. If you can do the selective mining using the surface miner, nowadays some of the mines already practice. Instead of taking the total cell material along with the coal material, you can take selectively coal material. That is one of the opportunity. You can go for the selective mining. Wherever the selective mining is not possible, you can go by the conventional beneficiation process to remove the cell material. But after that, nowadays the government of India is giving the stress of coal gasification, which is more related to chemical and mechanical engineering. That is the government, we are thinking to make a gasification and pithead so that the gas can be supplied both the domestic purpose, industry purpose also. That is the big way it is going on. Lot of research is going on. IMT has going to put up the pilot scale plant is under erection. And apart from that, when coal we are using for the power sectors, we should also use the latest technology, which is called the ultra supercritical power plant. They should use so that your efficiency of the power sector should improve, and you can reduce the coal consumption. And whatever carbon dioxide we are generating, in particular the power plant, there is another opportunity, particular for chemical engineering. It is going on carbon dioxide sequestration and value addition. That is another area of R&D scopes are there in chemical engineering. Now I am coming to the iron ore, which is the major source of the Odisha, around 35% share, putting the national reserves, because national reserve is 33 billion tons. Out of that, Odisha is sharing more. If you look after the production, around 250 million ton, Odisha is producing 120 to 130 million tons. But if you look the mining activity, though we are producing 250 million ton, but 250 million ton also we are wasting, because that is the low and limited resources that has to be utilized. Because each 1 million ton we are making the deforestation minimum 2 hectare land. Then if you can utilize the 50% low and limited resources by utilizing the art of technology, then your mining activity, whatever deforestation can be reduced, and that way you can improve the greenery of the mining area. The reduction of roasting. Nowadays, a lot of work has been done by the different R&D and academic institutions. But the time has come, we are going to put a first plant in Rairampur, commercial plant of the reduction of roasting to maximize the iron recovery from low-grade ores. Another area, because once the go for low-grade beneficiation, automatically you are generating the ultra-fine particles for concentrate. That has to be utilized through pelletization technology. According to the Ministry of Steel, new policy has been published in 2017. We are targeting 300 million ton of steel to produce in 2030. Today we are producing around 120 million ton. 120 to you have to go to 300 million ton. That way your 3 times the mining activity will increase. To look into that, the government of India has thought that to make a iron ore available in pellet form, out of 450 million ton, if you require for 300 million ton of steel, 300 million ton goes for the pelletization plant. Pelletization plant is not new. Already we have put up 150 million ton of the pellet plant in all over India. But the energy requirement for pelletization and reduction is huge. Nowadays, the research is going on. Can you combine the pelletization and reduction in single go, so that around 30 to 40% set, and that in that cases you can try to make a, even not only the reduction, even also final steel production. If you can make a single go, lot of energy can be saved. Nowadays in blast furnace process, because at present we are using coke, also coal injection we have started to reduce the coke consumption, but still now in European country already started the gas injection instead of coal. That way the energy consumption to produce of the crude steel can be reduced. And Odisha is the major resource of chromite and nickel. We are sharing more than 90% chromite and nickel in Odisha. Still, nickel is not being utilized because of the environmental issue. Though IMT, we have developed the technology, we have put up the pilot plant, 50 kg per day capacity, but nickel containing only 0.5%. The 99% material you have to throw by chemical treatment. It is become the more hazardous than recovering the nickel. That's why the research is again going on. Nickel should the byproduct. Whatever iron phase mineral, chromite is there, you can recover. That way you can minimize the waste. And second is the chromium 6, which is creating a lot of problem, environmental issue. That problem can be solved. And looking the aluminum industry in Odisha is 70% is sharing. You might have heard Nalco, Utkal Alumina, and Vedanta, that the major industries are in Odisha. We are generating, because the smelter consumes a lot of energy, because electricity is a raw material for them. Now the research is needed how to reduce the energy consumption. If you look up to the past, 50 kilowatt is required for 1 kg of the alumina, but today they have come down to 14. But still there is an opportunity, because theoretically you can consume 11. There is an opportunity there. If you can improve the electrodes by putting the advanced carbon material like graphene. Similarly, you can improve the electrolytes, sodium, the cryolites. Then you can able to reduce the energy consumption. That way, the overall consumption you can reduce. But another major issue in alumina industry is a red mud. The red mud, because 1 ton of alumina, we are almost producing 4 ton of red mud, which is a more alkali and lot of hazardous materials there. But one good news is we have a lot of rare earth elements are there. At present, we are searching the rare earth element. Now NALCO and other sector, or other 2 players, now they have given the project to IMT and NML together to maximize utilization of the red mud. But one good news is the Utkala alumina, now the red mud totally they are utilizing for cement manufacturing. There is no waste for the Utkala alumina. Similarly, the low grade, because after oil, we are mostly spending the foreign currency, the fertilizers. And we are importing for phosphatic rock or phosphoric acid all from the outsides. But we have the low grade phosphate. That is the containing phosphate ore, which is containing 7 to 10%, which at present we are not utilizing for production of phosphoric acid. One of the Andhra University, one fellow has developed the technology without going for phosphoric acid. You can use the phosphatic rock plus nepheline cyanide. Nepheline cyanide nothing is sodium, potassium, aluminum silicate. And along with the cow dung, around 5% he has mixed, and he has developed a natural fertilizers, which is giving the better result compared to the chemical, just like we are using urea and phosphatic fertilizers. That is a lot of opportunity. We can do the R&D, and fly ash is the major waste. But nowadays, lot of fly ash is going for cement manufacturing, is blending. That is the partly we are able to utilize, but still there is a lot of 1,000 million ton we are producing. It is not a 200 million ton we are producing. That is a huge amount. And for the transportation, also making a lot of environmental issues, particularly from mining sectors. And if you look after the Odisha, we have the put of the pipeline transportation from Bodbil to Paradip and Bodbil to the Jajpur Road by BRPL and ArcelorMittal nowadays. Earlier is still the pipeline transportation, which is now the emerging area, particularly mining sector, that also mechanical and chemical engineering guys will play the vital role. Now many pipeline, at least according to my knowledge, around 6 to 7 pipeline is coming up in Odisha, because that way the first thing, the traffic congestion you are reducing. Second, also the environmental issue, which is by transporting by road or railway, a lot of environmental issue can be reduced. Apart from that, the mines to mines, we are always insisting to go by the pipe conveyor, so that the dust generation should be less. And we are also insisting to the mining sectors, whatever energy you are consuming, partly you should go by the solar energy. And this is the one of the great example of Utkala alumina. Whole power consumption in the mining sector in Rayagada, they are producing from the solar energy. And that is in that case, the academic institute, R&D institute, and industry, they should come together. They should play the major role by making the synergistic effect. Because till today we are working independent. Still synergistic effect is not coming up unless these 3 pillars work together. I thank to organization for faculty development program and management of C.V. Raman Global University, giving the opportunity to interact with you people. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insightful talk on minerals and metallurgy. Thank you, sir. Thank you again.
Thank you.
So move on to the next speaker. So I request our chief guest of the FDP, Dr. Sunil Nanda, sir, so address the gathering. So before address the gathering, so I must say something about him. So Dr. Sunil Nanda is the Director of Research and Development at Titan Clean Energy Project in Carrick, Saskatchewan, He received his PhD degree in biology from York University, Toronto, MSc degree from VIT University in Tamil Nadu, India, and BSc degree from Orissa University of Agriculture and Technology in Orissa again. Sir has many publication. So he has authored over 120 articles in high impact journal, and is also the editor of 14 books on advanced biofuel, biochemicals, biomaterial, and circular economy, published by Elsevier, American Chemical Society, Springer Nature, CRC Press, then Apple Academic Press. Sir also served as a assistant subject editor of the International Journal of Hydrogen Energy by Elsevier, and the associate editor of Environmental Chemistry Letter and Applied Nanoscience by Springer Nature. Dr. Nanda is ranked among the top 2% scientists worldwide according to a recent Stanford University database of standardized citation metrics. He has also provided consultation to many corporations in UK, Canada, India, and Mauritius on clean energy. Now, over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kundu. Just before I begin, just wanted to make sure if you are able to see my presentation slides as well as
Yes,
my
sir.
pointer.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Yes, sir.
A very good morning, everyone. Once again, thank you, Dr. Kundu and Dr. Mohanty, for your kind introduction. It's actually a true delight and honor to be invited as the chief guest and the invited speaker at this podium. I really thank Dr. Rudranarayan Mahapatra for the kind invitation, as well as Dr. Vice Chancellor Sir Dr. Satyanarayan and as well as Dean Sir Dr. Kanungo, as well as all the management for the C.V. Raman Global University to participate in this ATAL Academy Faculty Development Program on green technology as well as waste management. Now, I also thank the course coordinator, Professor Mahapatra, Professor Mohanana, and Professor Kundu for their diligent efforts in organizing this event. I'm sure it is going to be a delightful, interactive, as well as a very successful event, not just for the participant, but also for the listeners and speakers. My sincere thanks to AICTE for hosting such professional development events that actually can ensure a very strong foundation of educational system that ensures quality, equality, equity, as well as accessibility in education, as Dr. Satyanarayan has delivered a very excellent and very highly energetic and enthusiastic talk about interactive learning. Thank you, sir. Therefore, with this introduction, I would like to begin my addressal talk, which is on the fundamental components of research in science and engineering. This is going to be a brief talk, and then my entire presentation, technical presentation, will follow up as scheduled later on. So this is a little bit about myself. I have a bachelor's degree in microbiology from Orissa University of Agriculture and Technology. I graduated 2007. After finishing my bachelor's degree in microbiology, I went to VIT University, Vellore in Tamil Nadu to pursue my master's degree in applied microbiology, where I gained experience in environmental sciences. There, as part of my 6 months of dissertation, I went to NEEDI, National Environmental Engineering Research Institute in Nagpur, India, where I was working on phytoremediation. So after that, after finishing my master's degree, I came back to my hometown, Bhubaneswar, where I was working in Orissa University of Agriculture and Technology as a senior research fellow in a project that was funded by NAIP. And the project was on investigating the impact of climate change, projected climate change on paddy plantation. That was the 1 year of my appointment at OUAT, because I had to leave to Canada to pursue my PhD degree in biology and bioresource technology from York University. After finishing my PhD degree, I worked as a postdoctoral fellow at York University on different thermochemical and hydrothermal processes. There, I got an opportunity to work with NASA on remediating the human metabolic waste as well as food waste that is generated in space using hydrothermal technologies, the waste that is generated in human space shuttles as well as in the International Space Station. After finishing my 3 years of postdoctoral experience, I did another postdoctoral fellowship at University of Western Ontario, where I was working with the City of London, Ontario, on valorizing the municipal solid waste to biofuels and biochemicals. My next appointment was as a research associate at University of Saskatchewan with Professor A.J. Dalai. There I was working on investigating the impacts of different biological conversion technology as well as thermochemical conversion technology on remediation of different solid waste and industrial effluents to biofuel, biochemical, and biocarbon products. Starting this year, I assumed the position of Director of Research and Development at Titan Clean Energy Projects in Quebec, Saskatchewan. Here, we are developing commercial products from the valorization of different solid waste. The products that we generate are biocarbon that can be applied for cosmetics, for nutraceuticals, for environmental pollution control, as well as for soil amendment. Now, here are a few books based on my research interest and expertise in the areas of biofuels, biochemicals, sustainable technologies. I have edited several books published in Springer, Elsevier, CRC Press, Taylor and Francis, American Chemical Society, Apple Academic Press, and so on. I have also edited several special issues focused in the thematic areas of biofuels, biochemicals, renewable energy, as you can see here with all the leading publishers. Currently, I'm the editor of International Journal of Hydrogen Energy, as well as Environmental Chemistry Letters and Applied Nanoscience in Springer Nature. Now, moving on to why we are here to discuss about the AICTE Training and Learning ATAL Academy. So the vision of this program is to empower faculty and to achieve goals of higher education, such as access, equity, as well as quality. These are some of the terms that was already highlighted by Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir Dr. Satyanarayan. So the key objectives of this ATAL program is to plan and help in imparting quality technical education in India, to support the technical institution in fostering research, innovation, entrepreneurship through training in various emerging areas. Now, the faculty development program aims to develop skills in case studies and technology development, research methodology, research and development, perspectives on management, career-oriented specialization courses, and most important of all, experiential and interactive learning. People learn more easily. When I say people, we all. Learning is a lifelong process. We all learn easily when we do. So it's learning as we work. So therefore, it is very much important to develop those career and job-oriented skills when we work with industries or we are given a situation to solve a real-world problem. Now, Henry Ford actually mentioned this quotation, which is one of my mottos: coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, but working together is success. So we all have to work in a very civil and a very constructive manner in order to develop our personality as well as in a professional growth. So the contents of this presentation is going to be focused briefly on the components of research, research progress, research ethics, environmental issues that are cropping today, and that's what the theme of this ATAL program is, and then we'll be finishing with the concluding remark. Now, I'd like to throw in this picture here. It's the same three individuals, but it's a different perspective. So what do you see from this picture here? On the left, there are these three individuals, and I believe there is a baseball match going on, and they're all three eager to watch. But unfortunately, on the left side, one of the individual is unable to watch the match. So this is something that crops in the education system: equality and then equity. So equality leads to equal treatment and access to resources and opportunities. Everyone gets the same thing, regardless of where they come from and what their needs are. On the other hand, equity leads to personalized resources needed for all individuals to reach common goals. The goals and expectations are the same for all students, but the support needed to achieve these goals depends on the student's needs. So we need to customize it. It doesn't have to be the same one-size-fits-all approach. It has to be customized in order for all the students to be benefited. Once again, another picture for you to visualize the same three individuals, but in different scenarios. So this is actually explains equality, accommodation, and accessibility in modern education. So equality represents a classroom where learners do not have equitable access to the classroom. Some learners can reach the blackboard and some cannot. The blackboard is not accessible to everyone, as you can see here. Not everyone has access to blackboard, especially this individual. But in accommodation, what happens here is accommodation represents a classroom where the learners with disabilities are raised to a level which is known as a learning field with their peers to reach the blackboard. They have equitable access to the education through this customized accommodation, as you can see here. But something that can also benefit everyone is accessibility, which represents a proactive classroom with a diverse group of learners. And instead of, as I mentioned, a one-size-fits-all approach or providing an individual accommodation, the blackboard height is actually mediated by lowering it and increasing its size so that all learners can have equal access to that. So this is something is known as accessibility. And in modern education, this is actually being incorporated in the modern education system. Mostly important is this accessibility. Now, moving on into the research and development. Why do we conduct research? And research is very much important in the life of every scholar and also industrialist. By definition, research, the systematic investigation into and study of material and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusion. Now, research is done to develop knowledge for professionals, to develop effective policies, to solve practical problems, to make informed decisions, as well as to increase the knowledge base for a larger society or a population. Now, there are numerous things in our daily life and experience in our society that are based on what we have learned with logic and evidence involved in scientific research. I'll give you an example for you to visualize how we do research in our everyday life, from little things to big decision making. For example, when you decide to buy a phone, you do debate between buying an Android or an Apple, and you do a lot of searching on the web, on the websites of both those software manufacturers, just to identify which one is more user-friendly. That is kind of a research. Second thing, when you go to a restaurant or you want to order some food or you want to check into a hotel, you do read reviews. When you read reviews, you do research of what people have experienced in their life, their previous experiences, their likes, dislikes, and then you make a decision, is it going to be the right thing to do or not? So that is also a kind of experiential research. Third thing, when you go to a grocery stores and you have different things, same cooking oil, but different variety and different manufacturers, what do you need to do? You debate, you look into different filtering criterias, price or nutritional values, and then when you read into the nutritional values, that is also a type of research. And something that we are all familiar with is the research in the laboratory. Now, there are different components of research in science and engineering, which are some of the foundations are evidence, logic, hypothesis, theories, validity, reliability, feasibility, and relevance. Now, evidence is defined as empirically observed experiences from the 5 senses, which is of 2 types, quantitative and qualitative experiences. Logic is the study of necessary connection or outcome. Hypothesis is a trial explanation that can be empirically tested. Theory is a set of related hypotheses that act together to provide a better explanation than any single hypothesis. Variables, something that we are all familiar about. We test temperatures, pressure, effect of different feed concentration in our experiments. So anything that can vary within a system or a process is known as variable. Validity tells us how accurately a method measures something. If a method measures what it claims to measure and the results are closely corresponding to the real world values, then the results are considered to be valid. Reliability, which is very important to generate reliable data and reproducible data. So the results of a result has been repeated and the findings can result each time the same thing. Feasibility, very, very important once again, because feasibility is determined as an assessment of the practicability of a proposed plan or method. Relevance, I would say that this is the most significant one, because without relevance, no research is actually possible, because relevance determines or demonstrates the practical significance of a research outcome to an individual, to a group of individuals, to a population, to a society, to an industry, or the environment. Now, there are different steps in a scientific research progress. Once again, I'll not go into the details, but I'll highlight some of the main key important steps. First of all, As a scholar or a researcher, what we need to do is, before conducting a scientific research, we need to select a topic for study. And then after determining the topic, the most important thing is reviewing the literature. It has to be the recent state-of-the-art literature as well as the most recent literature, because we need to be really up to date of the things happening around us in the entire world. Knowing the knowledge gaps is very important. Once we determine what are the gaps in the existing knowledge, then we identify the research problem. Then we need to find the solution for the research problem by filling in these knowledge gaps, which serve as the main objectives or sub-objectives of this process. And then designing the study and the experiments by performing different design of experiments, response surface methodology, and several other programs or univariate method. After that, performing reproducible experiments is very important. Collecting reliable data and reproducible data, analyzing and interpreting the findings, comparing the findings with the literature, because it's very important to compare the findings. No matter the data can be contrasting or the data can be similar to or in accordance to what is already reported. But we need to support our literature, our data with the literature. And then either it has to be the data or finding has to be patented for industrial application, knowledge translation, or it can be communicated in the form of research papers, review articles, or even book chapters. Finally, the knowledge translation is done to the industry and the society depending on the objectives of the project. Now, coming to the research ethics, which is also one of the integral parameters or factors to follow in every research. Now, the basic principles of research ethics can be minimizing the risk or harm to the participants, could be human or animal, obtaining informed consents from the participants and collaborators, protecting the anonymity and as well as the confidentiality of the research data and other aspects. Discussion and understanding of the intellectual property rights, having a very thorough understanding of what the potential deliverable and outcomes will be and how the research will be communicated, either patented or in publication. So in that way, the IP rights needs to be protected. Being conscious of multiple roles, if you are playing as a researcher, as a supervisor, or as a corresponding author of article, these multiple roles and responsibilities must be thoroughly understood. Being aware of updated research ethics resources by the organization and the funding organization is also quite important. Preventing plagiarism in scientific publication. Once again, very, very important factor. Maintaining honesty in research and testing. Preventing any conflict of interest, could be personal, professional, as well as financial. And then acknowledging generously the co-workers, collaborators, industrial partners, and then funding organization is quite essential for every research. Now, what does this picture show you? Is the same individual which just reverted image and shows ASA1 and ASA2. And in another figure, a picture here, what you can see here is there is an individual doing some scholarly work and then somebody else sneaking in and trying to get some ideas and insights. This is directing us to plagiarism in academic writing. So plagiarism is the representation of another author's language, thoughts, ideas, or expressions as one's own original work without crediting the original author. Self-plagiarism is also defined as a type of plagiarism in which the writer republishes the work either entirely or in portions of a previously written text while authoring a new work. Now, how to prevent those? Thoroughly proofreading your material, and using authenticate software, Turnitin, as well as Plagian. These are some of the plagiarism detection software that can actually thoroughly screen existing literature as well as the new. Now, there is some severe consequence of plagiarism. For example, rejection or retraction of the article if it's published, and the person or the individual under pursuing a degree may lose the degree or credential, scientific reputation may be ruined, disciplinary action could be taken, may be subject to lawsuit, may also result in monetary restitution, and one of the things is defamation of the organization, something that could be prevented by maintaining integrity in scientific and scholarly writing. Now, finally, there are some of the features of a good and ethical research. I'll just highlight it here. The research purpose should be clearly defined. The knowledge gaps and relevance to the society and industry must be outlined. The state-of-the-art literature review is performed. Funding and experimental resources, manpower are properly planned and secured. The research progress and design are thoroughly planned and detailed. Standard operating protocols are strictly followed. Risks and liabilities to exposure during the research and experiments are very well defined. The personal protective equipment are used by the workers and visitors to ensure safety to the personnel. Emergency contact are outlined and the safety protocols are followed to ensure the workplace safety. Non-conformances, incidents, and accidents that do occur during experiments must be reported and also recorded to prevent such incidents from recurring in the future. Ethical standards are applied in experimentation, result communication, as well as in collaborative works. Experimental challenges are revealed for troubleshooting so that it also helps not just the scholar, but also for the future generations, other people coming to the lab and working in, they know where to find the solution from and what are the common problems. Adequate analysis and interpretation are made for communication of the data. Findings are presented unambiguously and very clearly. Conclusions are well justified with evidences by comparing with the literature, and then the researchers' experience and institutions' reputation are very well reflected through scientific publications. Now, I would request you to please stay tuned for my final presentation, where we will be discussing about some of the problems of the environment, such as overpopulation, waste generation, pollution, deforestation, greenhouse gas emission, climate change, depletion of the ozone layer, global temperature increase, and rising sea levels. These are some of the environmental issues that are cropping and we are experiencing it today, and some of the possible solutions that we will be discussing in the presentation, which includes waste conversion, carbon capture, green fuels and chemicals, circular economy, and using the several R's, which is refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle, which are once again the concepts of the circular economy. Now, as the concept of the circular economy goes, when the resource is manufactured, the resources are taken from maybe natural resources or synthetic materials for industrial manufacturing processes, and then to manufacture different products, waste are certainly generated. But in circular economy, what happens is there are certain care that has to be taken so that to minimize the waste, and the byproducts must be reused, remanufactured, repurposed in the same process so that the waste is reduced and the impacts are also lessened in the environment. So I'd like to keep it continued for my keynote lecture in the coming few minutes. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insightful talk about research process, research writing, academic writing, IP generation, as well as the plagiarism check. So that is very good for researcher as well as those who are going to research in near future. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, move on. So now we are at the end of the session of the inauguration. Now I request Professor Rudranaran Mahapatra to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, all of them. Myself, Rudranaran Mahapatra, Program Coordinator of FDP, is feeling privileged to render a vote of thanks to one and all present over here. So I, on behalf of Chemical Engineering Department, C.V. Raman Global University, Odisha, extends a hearty vote of thanks to all delegates of the AICT-sponsored ATAL FDP on green technology and waste management for the era of advanced manufacturing and circular economy for their presence. I extend my thanks to our honorable chief guest, Dr. Sunil Nanda, sir, our guest of honor, Dr. Surendra Kumar Biswal, sir, and our another guest of honor, Dr. or Professor P. Kanungo, sir, for taking out time from his busy schedule to grace the event. Thank you for inspiring and encouraging us with your words on this special day. Special thank to Chairperson Professor B.S. Satyanarayan, sir, for providing the necessary support for organizing this FDP. I also extend my gratitude to Professor P. Kanungo, sir, for their valuable advice and support to make this program successful. I am also thankful to Dr. Ranjita Mohanty, Madam, Head of the Chemical Engineering, for his overall support for organizing this FDP. I extend my thanks to AICT for sponsoring this faculty development program. Last but not least, I am thankful to my team member, Dr. Anup Kundu, for their effort and enormous cooperation. Without their effort, the program may not have been possible to organize successfully. Once again, thank you everyone. Hope you all will enjoy the session ahead. Have a good day. In the first session, we will listen from Dr. Sunil Nanda on biofuel and biocarbon, finding solution to energy crisis, pollution and waste management. And that session will start from 10:30 a.m. Thank you all.
Okay, so one
Thank you very
request.
much.
Thank you, Rudra sir. So I request everyone please turn on your camera so that I can take picture.
Please participant also turn on their videos.
It is a request to all participants to turn on their videos.
Okay, I have done. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Namaste.
Thanks.
Thanks to our guests once again, and I'm sure we'll have more exciting talks in the coming session. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. First session will start from 10:30, sir.
So in the same link, sir. There will be not change any link.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sir, it is okay, sir.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
All the best again. Have a
Okay,
nice
thank you,
day.
sir. Okay, sir. Should we start, sir?
Yes, yes, for sure, Dr. Gundu. We can
Okay.
start.
Okay. Now, that first lecture of that ATAL FDP, Green Technology and Waste Management, the era of advanced manufacturing and the circular economy. So, first lecture will give by Dr. Sunil Nanda, the Director Research Development and Titan Clean Energy Project Corporation, Carrick, Canada. So I must say some few word about Dr. Sunil Nanda. So Dr. Sunil Nanda is the Director of Research and Development at Titan Clean Energy Project at Carrick, Canada. He received his PhD degree in biology from York University, Toronto, MSc degree from BIT University in Tamil Nadu, India, and BSc degree from the Odisha University of Agriculture and Technology in Odisha. So Dr. Nanda has authored over 120 articles in High Impact Journal and is the editor of 14 books on advanced biofuel, biochemicals, biomaterials, and circular economy, published by Elsevier, American Chemical Society, Springer, Nature, then CRC Press. So now, sir, over to you. Please start your presentation, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kundu, once again for reintroducing me. Let me share my slides right now. Are you able to see my slides in full screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you once again. Welcome everyone once again to my talk, which is on the biofuels and biocarbon and finding solutions to energy crisis, pollution, and waste management. I'm Dr. Sonal Nanda, Director of Research and Development at Titan Clean Energy Projects in Craig, Saskatchewan, in Canada. Now, in this presentation, we will be discussing about greenhouse gas emissions, the COVID-19 impacts on our environment and ecosystem, biorefining technologies, biomass and bioenergy, biochar applications, and then we'll conclude our talk by creating some awareness and some action that we can take to act against the climate change. So it's very important to understand the impacts of the fossil fuels and greenhouse gases, and which is the main key of this ATAL program on clean technologies and as well as in the waste management. So the fossil fuels, there is always an increasing demand of the fossil fuels since the time of the Industrial Revolution. Despite the discussions on their depleting resources, rising fuel prices, geopolitical issues between the fuel importing nations as well as the fuel exporting nations, greenhouse gas emissions, pollution, global warming, despite all of these issues, we still stick to one of our preferred sources of energy and power generation, which is fossil fuels. Now, the fossil fuels and the greenhouse gas emissions have resulted in climate change. Now, I must say that climate change is not a future issue. It is here, and it is impacting our health, our ecosystem, clean drinking water, air that we breathe, energy security, global economy, commodity prices, supply chain. Everything is being impacted by the climate change. Now, the most important of all is it is also going to impact our future generations. Therefore, we need to act against the climate change and do some things that we can in our capacity to reduce or mitigate the intensity of the climate change and global warming. Now, the global warming and climate change is predominantly caused by the greenhouse gases through the greenhouse effect. Now, some of the greenhouse gases, which include carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, SOx, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and these are some of the gases that impact and also the particulate matter. So these are the components that result in the depletion of the ozone layer, increasing in the global warming, and also the diurnal temperature of our planet Earth. Now, methane is also one of the greenhouse gases, which is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And also, there are some studies that indicate that methane has a global warming potential more than 80 times than that of the carbon dioxide. So the worldwide greenhouse gas emissions I have shown here in this figure here, you can see that the global carbon dioxide emissions result predominantly from the electricity and the heat generation, followed by the transportation sectors, and then the industrial manufacturing and construction, followed by agriculture, and then the land use changes, forestry, fugitive emissions, industrial manufacturing, buildings, waste accumulation and decomposition, and other waste combustion, as well as aviation and shipping or freight. They contribute to the global carbon dioxide emission. But as I mentioned here, it's mostly the electricity, combined heat and power generation, and transportation sectors. They result in massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now, talking about the methane emissions, majority of the methane emissions comes from agriculture. Now, agriculture, when the methane is a marsh gas. So under anaerobic digestion or from the manure, cattle manure or livestock farming, most of the waste that is generated, if they're not treated or remediated properly as a result of the methanogenic bacterial growth and anaerobic digestion, the methane is released into the atmosphere. And methane, as I mentioned, is a more potent greenhouse gas than that of the carbon dioxide. Now, other sources of methane emissions include fugitive emissions from the industry, as well as the waste generation, other fuel combustion, land use changes, and forestry. But industry contribute to just a minor amount of methane emissions into the atmosphere, unlike that of the carbon dioxide emissions. Now, this figure here shows the consumption of different fossil fuels over the years since the 1980s. You can see that the total fossil fuel consumption has been exponentially increasing, so as the individual consumption of coal, natural gas, and petroleum. Now, because of this overwhelming consumption of fossil fuels, the total carbon dioxide emissions in the entire world has also increased. In the previous slide, we saw what are the sources of carbon dioxide emission, and this slide here shows the per capita emission of carbon dioxide and also country-wise emission. China, United States, and India rank in the top 3 emitters of carbon dioxide in the entire world. Now China, having the massive manufacturing hub for the entire world, generates a massive amount of carbon dioxide resulting from the industrial manufacturing, followed by the United States and then India. Now, since India is ranking number 3, we need to take some action in order to reduce or lessen our emissions into the atmosphere. We don't want to keep adding carbon into the atmosphere. Rather, we should find ways to capture or lock the carbon in some form so that we are leading towards a carbon sequestration or a carbon capture approach. This one we are going to listen to in the next part of this presentation. Now, as you must be aware of the recent 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, the COP26. Now, the Conference of the Parties, or COP26, is the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference that was held in Glasgow, Scotland, United Kingdom, from October 31st to November 13th, 2021. Now, it was a big event because of some of the outcomes that we're taking here to mitigate the climate change. Now, the outcomes include that 197 countries that participated in this conference agreed to the Glasgow Climate Pact, which is another succeeding pact to the Paris Accord. Now, this pact leads down, it sets a few objectives that needs to be met by some of the developing and developed countries both. Now, over 140 countries pledged to reach the net zero emissions, including 90% of the global GDP. Over 100 countries pledged to reverse the deforestation by 2030, Brazil included. Over 40 countries pledged to move away from coal. India promised to draw half of its energy requirement from renewable sources by 2030. A very aggressive goal, but it can be met if all of us act together. Now, some of the leading car manufacturers such as GM, Ford, Volvo, BYD Auto, Jaguar Land Rover, and Mercedes-Benz in 24 developed countries will now manufacture zero-emission vehicles by 2040. And then financial help for climate change mitigation and adaptation were also announced and will be provided to certain countries. Global temperature predictions by Climate Change Tracker by the end of this century predicts that there will be an increase in 2.7 degrees Celsius with the current policies, the existing policies in the Paris Accord. However, the temperature can be reduced and there will be only an increase of 1.8 degrees Celsius in the global temperature by 200 by 2100, if all the announced targets are fully achieved, all of these targets, if they're all achieved, then we could lessen the increase in the global temperature. Now, COVID-19 and global air quality. In the primary months of the lockdown, because of the circuit breaker and lockdown, we saw that there were less transportation on the road, both on-road transportation as well as aviation. And there was also an impact on the industrial manufacturing activities. As a result of these impacts, we could see that the air quality has drastically increased, because this is an index of the particulate matter, particulate 9.3, 9.1, 8, and 7. And these are some of the metro cities, Rome, Madrid, New York, as well as Delhi. You can see that from the particulate matter index, which were quite high in the initial months of February 2020, by April 13th, 2020, well, you can see that the air quality index has increased and the particulate matter index is reduced because of lessening of the pollution, because of the lockdowns. Although we could see that was a case study which shows that we could actually increase our air quality by preventing the emissions into the atmosphere, but another waste we are keeping on adding because of the COVID-19 is the plastic waste, which is now the big elephant in the room. So the plastic waste are generated in the form of syringes, single-use syringes, surgical masks, face masks, disposable blades and scalpels, face shields, latex gloves, surgical and isolation gowns, shoe covers, sanitizer containers, and waterproof aprons. So these are some of the plastic waste that are generated and keeping on accumulating in the atmosphere. Just the concentration being increased excessively in the last year. Now, the worldwide plastic production was 245 million tons in 2008. And over the years, it has increased to 368 million tons in 2019. Now, just in 2020, the worldwide plastic production has increased to 584 million tons per year, because 1.6 million tons per year plastic waste generated globally every day because of all of these plastic waste from the biomedical industries. Now, just 3.4 billion single-use face masks and facials are discarded globally during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, among the regions, you can see that Asia contributes the maximum amount of the plastic waste generated, because it depends on the per capita consumption. And in Asia, because of more number of population, we see that this waste being increasing in Asia, followed by Europe, Africa, South America, North America, and then Oceania, including New Zealand and Australia. Now, apart from the plastic waste, there are also several other waste, solid waste, that are generated globally. For example, the plant biomass, which includes agricultural residues, forestry residues, perennial grasses, the fallen leaves, dead trees, wood logs, and so on. Followed by the municipal solid waste, food waste, animal manure, industrial effluents, petrochemical residues like bitumen, petroleum coke, asphaltene. These are some of the residues that are generated from the processing of the crude oil. Then mixed plastics, which we discussed, as well as sewage sludge. Now, these are most of the waste, but we could find some opportunities how to utilize this waste effectively and convert this waste into something valuable. For example, the opportunities that we could see is these waste could turn into carbon neutral products. There is no food versus fuel debate, because these are mostly residues and they would not compete with the food supply or with the arable lands. In fact, valorizing them will reduce their accumulation and clear up space and volume that would otherwise be occupied by the accumulation of this waste. And these waste are mostly available abundantly, and these are relatively low cost that can be converted into high value products. The products that can be generated from their valorization are biofuels and biochemicals. If these are biofuels, then these biofuels could be blended with the fossil fuels to partially reduce the demand of the fossil fuels. Now, talking about the lignocellulosic biomass or the plant-based biomass. Now, the examples of lignocellulosic biomass include agricultural residues, woody biomass, and perennial grasses. Now, I would start discussing about lignocellulosic biomass after understanding the chemistry of it. Now, if you take a plant cell, and in the plant cell, we could see that the cells, they contain cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. That is why the name of this plant residues are termed as lignocellulosic biomass. Now, cellulose is nothing but a long-chain polymer of glucose monomers connected by beta-1,4-glycosidic linkages, van der Waals forces, and hydrogen bonds. Now, these are long chain polymers of glucose, and on the layer of celluloses, hemicelluloses are covered. Hemicelluloses are amorphous sugars. Now, both cellulose and hemicellulose are bound together by lignin. Lignin is not a sugar, but it's a polymer. It's a highly branched polymer that binds the cellulose and hemicellulose together, providing rigidity and integrity to the plant cell. And therefore, because of the presence of lignin, the plant cells are resistant to rain, to extremely high temperature, to activity by insects, pests, and so on, because it protects a layer from the external and the internal environment of the plant cells. Now, there are several applications of the lignocellulosic biomass, the first and foremost being in the biorefineries to produce biofuels like bio-oil, biochar, syngas, biodiesel. Several solid, liquid, and gaseous fuels can be produced from the processing of the lignocellulosic biomasses. Biochemicals can be recovered because the lignocellulosic biomasses are predominantly made of cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. Now, because as a result of the different catalytic, photocatalytic, electrochemical, hydrothermal technologies, the sugars or these biopolymers can be converted, transformed into different high-value platform chemicals like flavoring agents, aromatics, and alcohols for application in different value-added industries. Biomaterials can be extracted, for example, the biopolymer itself, like cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin, they can be extracted for application in bioplastics and biocomposite, as well as the cellulose can be used as hydrogels, as cellulose fibers and fabrics, textiles. Lignin material can be extracted for application in different resins and plasticizers and antioxidants because lignin is hydrophobic in nature. Now, because of the hydrophobic and elastic properties of lignin, these applications are mostly identified in different commercial industries. Lignocellulosic biomasses can be carbonized to produce different carbon-based materials like activated carbon, carbon nanohorns, carbon nanotubes for different high-value or high-end applications that rely on carbon materials. Now, coming to cellulose. Now, as I mentioned, cellulose is a long-chain polymer of glucose monomers connected by beta-1,4 glycosidic linkages, van der Waals forces, and hydrogen bonds. Now, cellulose has a molecular weight of 342 grams per mole, and it has a long-chain polysaccharides containing around 7,000 to 15,000 glucose monomers. But this is subject to vary depending on the source of the precursor, depending on the plant source. And the degree of polymerization of cellulose ranges somewhere between 1,500 to 5,500 typically, but it can go a little up and down. And cellulose occurs in both crystalline and amorphous forms. The crystalline forms of cellulose predominantly found are cellulose 1 and 2. Also, cellulose 3,1, 3,2, 4,1, 4,2 are also available. In the lower plants or the herbaceous or agricultural residues, cellulose 1 alpha is found, whereas in the higher plants or in the long-living trees, cellulose 1 beta is predominantly found. Now, hemicellulose is not a crystalline sugar, but it's an amorphous material, and it contains both sugars and sugar acids. Hemicellulose comprises of pentose sugars or C5 sugars like xylose and arabinose. It also contains hexose sugars like glucose, ramenose, galactose, and mannose. These are all the C6 sugars. And hemicellulose also contains sugar acids like glucuronic acid and galactouronic acid. So it's a heteropolysaccharide. Now, the molecular weight of hemicellulose is relatively lower than that of cellulose, as you can notice here. And also, hemicellulose is a short chain polysaccharide comprising of 500 to 3,000 glucose monomers, unlike the cellulose, as you can see here. Now, the degree of polymerization of hemicellulose is also much lower than that of cellulose. And because of the lower degree of polymerization and the short chain polymers, hemicellulose becomes amorphous, hydrolyzable, and hydrophilic, which means that it is easy to hydrolyze or remove hemicellulose just by boiling the biomass in hot water at 100 degrees Celsius. If we do that, then we will be able to remove all of the hemicelluloses from the lignocellulosic biomasses. Now, coming to lignin, Lignin is not a sugar, but it's a phenylpropane polymer which contains p-coumaryl alcohol, coniferyl alcohol, and synepyl alcohol. Now, the molecular weight of lignin is much, much higher than that of the cellulose and hemicellulose together. Lignin is also amorphous, and it is cross-linked, it is polymerate, and it is hydrophobic, which means it repels water. Now, lignin has 30% higher heating value than cellulose and hemicellulose together. Now, lignin is also insoluble in water. It's insoluble in acids. It's insoluble in solvents, except that it is soluble in different alkali materials like NaOH and phosphoric NaOH, as well as sodium hypochlorite. Now, presence of lignin in the plant cells makes the plant cell resistant to microbial attack and provides strength to the plants, as I had already indicated. Now, there are different generations of waste biomasses, which can be categorized into first generation, second generation, and third generation. Now, the first generation feedstocks, they're mostly the food crops, and for example, corn, potato, wheat, cassava. So they are called the first generation because they contain starch in it. Now, starch is very easy to hydrolyze and convert into different alcohols, especially bioethanol. Now, until 2007, these first generation feedstocks were predominantly used in industrial biorefining processes to produce biofuels. Now, because of that, there was cases of inflation and price increases for foodstuffs. There were shortages of food supply in the third world countries. Now, because of these ethical concerns, the popularity or the first generation feedstocks lost their popularity. As a result of that, the second generation feedstocks emerged. The second generation feedstocks are mostly the wood, straw, and grasses. These are the non-food materials, or after the crops are harvested, the residues that obtained, like straw or bagasse. There are now barley straw, wheat straw, bagasse, rice husk, or seed carb processing, food, or even food processing waste. These are mostly the lignocellulosic materials or the second generation materials. Now, they not necessarily contain starch, but they are made of cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. Now, these cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin, they require some sort of pre-treatment and enzymatic hydrolysis to separately fractionate these biopolymers and selectively convert them into different biofuels. Now, as a result of fermentation, ethanol, butanol, biomethane, and hydrogen can be produced from cellulose and hemicelluloses, which are mostly sugars. As a result of gasification, all the three, cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin, can be converted into different syngas and hydrogen-based biofuels. As a result of pyrolysis or thermochemical conversion, the lignocellulose biomasses can produce bio-oil, pyrolysis gas, and biochar. The third generation feedstocks, these are some of the newer variety of feedstocks, which include municipal solid waste, food waste, or even microalgae that contain triglycerides, fatty acids, lipids, and proteins. And as a result of different mechanical or even thermochemical or physicochemical extraction processes and conversion technologies, they can be converted into different algal oils, biodiesel, as well as aviation fuels. Now, talking about municipal solid waste. Municipal solid waste is a waste that is mostly generated from our households or from a city or a locality that contains organic residues, waste paper, mixed plastics, and some of the non-degradable materials like glasses, metals, as well as the mixed plastics, which I indicated, and some of the miscellaneous waste like e-waste. Now, if you see this graph here, you can notice that the majority of the municipal solid waste is generated from the United States, followed by China and India, and then Brazil, Indonesia, Russia, Mexico, Germany, and several other countries follow. Now, there are several stages of municipal solid waste management, current processes. First of all, generation of the municipal solid waste at the source, at our consumer level. Municipal solid waste is generated in the households, offices, institutions, and commercial enterprises. Now, it is developed, municipal solid waste in developed countries contains mostly higher fraction of plastics and paper waste with low moisture content and high heating value. As a result of that, the municipal solid waste in the developing countries contain higher fraction of the organic matter, especially the food waste or yard waste, kitchen waste, with high moisture content and low heating value. Now, the next step is collection and transfer of the municipal solid waste. Now, in the collection step, the waste segregation and sorting is done at the source in the developed countries, but this is not usually practiced in the developing countries. In the developed countries, the garbage collection trucks by local municipality collects the municipal solid waste from households and designated areas. The waste transfer stations are found in different metropolitan cities, and that handle and distribute the waste to sorting and processing facility. After the collection and transfer, then the waste are transferred into a resource recovery facility where the different types of waste like inert materials, biodegradable waste, metals, plastics, they're all segregated separately, and they go into different streams for recycling, processing, or for landfilling. And finally, the disposal, processing, or treatment of the waste is done, where landfilling is one of the preferred municipal solid waste disposal method in developed countries. In most developing and developed countries, incineration is practiced as to reduce the volume of municipal solid waste and for the heat and power generation. But incineration also causes a lot of emissions and fly ash into the atmosphere, which is hazardous to human health, as well as has a lot of potential for global warming and pollution. And then one of the sustainable methods for handling the municipal solid waste is implementation of the waste to energy processes such as pyrolysis, liquefaction, gasification, and anaerobic digestion that can produce specific fuels like bio-oil producer gas, synthesis gas, methane, and biohydrogen for different combined heat and power, as well as for transportation purposes. Now, here is an integrated layout of different waste to energy conversion technologies. Now, starting from the solid waste, as you can see here, there are two broad categories of technologies, which is the thermochemical conversion as well as biochemical conversion. Now, I'll start with biochemical conversion, where different microorganisms and their enzymes are used to convert the organic fraction or the sugary material in the solid waste to different bioalcohols. For example, ethanol fermentation utilizes Saccharomyces cerevisiae, or the baker's yeast, the pizza yeast, to produce or to ferment the starch and cellulose and hemicellulose to produce ethanol. Now, anaerobic digestion is one of the traditional methods in even in India, where we use which is known as biomethanation purpose, uses all the yard waste, kitchen waste, and household waste, or even the animal manure to anaerobically digest by methanogenic bacteria and produce biogas, also known as locally as gobar gas. Now, after the biomethane is produced, the digestate that is remaining after the digestion process is also is rich in organic matter and humus, and that is applied in the agricultural field as a source of organic manure. Another technology, which is a butanol fermentation, commonly known as acetone, butanol, and ethanol fermentation, or ABE fermentation. Now, this kind of fermentation is mostly carried out by Clostridium species, Clostridium acetobutylicum or Clostridium behrinckii, where this anaerobic bacteria utilizes both pentose and hexose sugars present in the organic waste and converts them into three different types of products, which is ethanol, butanol, and acetone, as well as some of the biochemicals like lactic acid, acetic acid, and butyric acid, and also two primary gases, which is biohydrogen and carbon dioxide is emitted as a byproduct. So it's a very highly versatile fermentation process, the ABE fermentation process. And now coming to the thermochemical conversion, the first technology being torrefaction, which is also known as roasting or reducing the moisture from a solid material. As a result of torrefaction, the moisture is removed. As the moisture is removed, then the heating value of material is enhanced. The next step or the next process is pyrolysis, which is a biomass to liquid conversion technology that predominantly produces bio-oil. Along with that, biochar is produced depending on different process conditions, temperature, and heating rate that is involved, and the vapor residence time. Liquefaction is a process, as the name suggests, it liquefies the solid material in the presence of high temperature, pressure, and some catalyst, acid and basic catalyst, to produce bio-crude oil, which has a high heating value and high better fuel properties than bio-oil that is produced from pyrolysis. Gasification, once again, as the name suggests, it gasifies the solid waste to produce biohydrogen and biomethane, as well as syngas. Syngas is nothing but a combination of biohydrogen and carbon monoxide that can be used as a direct fuel, or it can be used as a precursor for a catalytic process, which is known as Fischer-Tropsch catalysis, where different metal catalysts are used to convert the syngas produced from gasification and produce different hydrocarbon fuels. And the hydrocarbon fuels can range from green diesel to different hydrocarbons like short chain and long chain alcohols, as well as paraffin waxes and biolubricants. Now, the digestate that is obtained from anaerobic digestion, it can also be integrated in the process, and it can be converted into different biofuel products when it is subjected to different thermochemical conversion technologies. The syngas, which is obtained from gasification, can also be biologically converted by using different anaerobic bacteria, the same bacteria that utilizes that is utilized in ABE fermentation, Clostridium behrinckii. That bacteria can utilize syngas as a precursor to convert for syngas fermentation to produce bioethanol. Now, coming to the first biological conversion technology, which is fermentation. Now, as I had mentioned, the first generation feedstocks, which are mostly the starch-based feedstocks, it's much easier for the biorefineries or industries to utilize the starch. It's one of the favorite feedstocks, but because of the ethical concerns, they're no longer being utilized in these industries. But starch, which is easy to hydrolyze, it just requires pulverizing the material and then utilizing the microorganisms. They can ferment the starch to easily produce different bioethanol and different bioalcohol based products, and also different biochemicals. Lignocellulosic biomass, on the other hand, first of all, it requires pulverizing or size reduction. As a result of size reduction, different pretreatment methods, including acidic pretreatment, basic pretreatment, ultrasonication, and different microwave treatment, ionization, ionic liquids, a variety of different pretreatment technologies are available that can act on the pulverized or crushed lignocellulosic biomass to selectively recover cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin for further enzymatic hydrolysis of cellulose and hemicellulose, because cellulose and hemicellulose are mostly polysaccharides. But for the microorganisms to utilize the sugars, they need to be made available in the form of monosaccharides. Therefore, the sugars must be degraded to monosaccharides or the monomers, which is done by the enzymes, cocktail of enzymes. For example, cellulase enzymes, cellulase and beta glycosidase enzymes, they help to break down the glucose monomers and release the different individual glucose monomers, and the different hemicellulase enzymes help in degrading the hemicelluloses, and the lignin modifying enzymes, they also result in the partial degradation of lignin. Now, after the sugars are recovered, then the sugars can be fermented to produce different ethanol and butanol by using a variety of different microorganisms that are selectively able to produce these two different fuel products or bioalcohols. Now, we all know about bioethanol, and bioethanol is a very well-known term which is used as a biofuel. For example, in our current vehicles, we could use E85 in US and in Canada. The gas or the petroleum that is mostly obtained is the E85 grade, which is 85% of petroleum or gasoline and then 15% of ethanol. So that's a flexible proportion. So it can go up to 15% because our current vehicle engines cannot use ethanol at higher concentration, because that's how our current vehicular engines are made globally, whatever we are driving right now, not the newer ones. But unlike bioethanol, biobutanol is a much more advanced biofuel because of several properties that I've highlighted here. Butanol, as a biofuel or a bioalcohol-based fuel, it has got high heating value, low vapor pressure, high octane number, it is less hygroscopic, it is less hazardous, it is less volatile, and it can be used in different flexible fuel proportions, unlike ethanol that I just mentioned. And the Clostridium species, which is capable of performing the acetone butanol ethanol fermentation, ABE fermentation, can utilize both pentose and hexose sugars to produce butanol. The Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is the model organism to produce bioethanol, lacks the natural ability to ferment xylose or hemicelluloses, because Saccharomyces cerevisiae are mostly efficient enough to ferment the glucose or the hexose sugars and lack the natural ability to efficiently ferment the pentose sugars. Unlike that, biobutanol producing microorganisms like Clostridium species, they are able to ferment both these type of sugars. Now, butanol can also be used in 100% in our current vehicle engines without any requirement of engine modification. Now, this table shows here the different fuel properties of bioethanol, biobutanol, and as compared with that of gasoline. Now, I've highlighted a few parameters in yellow, as you can see here. You notice that biobutanol, for example, the calorific value of biobutanol is much superior than that of ethanol and somewhere close to that of gasoline. Similarly, some of the fuel indices, such as the air-to-fuel ratio, octane number, as well as heat of vaporization, the values of biobutanol are somewhere closer to that of gasoline, as you can notice here. Similarly, the lower heating value and high heating value of biobutanol are also quite close to that of gasoline and much superior than that of bioethanol. Now, coming to hydrothermal gasification, another thermochemical conversion technology. Now, water, as we all know, exists in liquid form in room temperature. When we freeze the water, it transforms into ice. When we boil the water, it transforms into water vapor, because it all depends on the temperature and pressure of the water. But when we increase the temperature and pressure of water to a level so that it exceeds the critical point, or the critical points of the critical temperature of water is 374 degrees Celsius, and the critical pressure is 22.1 megapascal. When we increase the temperature and pressure of water at the same time and it goes beyond its critical point, so the water transforms into a fluid phase. And that fluid phase of water is not like liquid and it's not like gases. It's somewhere in between that. That phase of water, that fluid phase of water, is known as supercritical water. So the supercritical water can be defined as the phase of water that that has a temperature and pressure more than that of the critical points, whereas the subcritical water or the near critical water has a temperature and pressure close to that of the critical points of the water, but it's still a fluid phase. Now, the different advantages of using water in hydrothermal as an agent of hydrothermal gasification is that the reaction uses water, which is a green solvent. Water is low cost, and it is non-toxic. Even the wastewater from the sewer lines that can also be used as a source or the medium for gasification as a way to remediate the water and also to utilize it and valorize it. Now, the advantages of hydrothermal gasification is that it does not require biomass drying, because in the medium of gasification, hydrothermal gasification, we are adding extra water. So imagine the water, the feedstock that contains high moisture content already, for example, food waste, for example, sewage sludge, they already contain high amount of water content. So there is no requirement or no need to dry the feedstock, and even directly the feedstocks can be utilized and gasified because the medium of gasification itself is water. And there is, in hydrothermal gasification, there is negligible to no toxic byproducts are formed because of the involvement of water, which is a non-toxic solvent. Hydrogen-rich synthesis gas is obtained as a main product of interest here, and hydrogen gas itself is obtained at high pressure because of the high pressure involved. The operation of the hydrothermal gasification operates at more than 22.1 megapascal or 221 bar, or around 2300 or around like 3600 psi. So there are several advantages of supercritical water also, because the supercritical water acts in a different homogeneous medium, unlike heterogeneous phase. Supercritical water in the different oxidation and gasification reactions, they act as a reactant, as a catalyst, and as a solvent. As a catalyst because and as a reactant because the H2O will further break down to H plus and OH minus ions. Some of the H plus ions will contribute to the hydrogen production, and some of these H plus and OH minus ions will act as an ionic and free radical mechanism to enhance the solubility of complex materials like waste plastics, sewage sludge, waste rubber, waste tires. These are some of the very complex type of materials and non-biodegradable materials that can be easily valorized and transformed into different fuel products with the application of supercritical water gasification and oxidation. Moreover, as I had mentioned earlier, supercritical water behaves both like liquids and gases, which means it has both high diffusivities and low viscosities. Now, why hydrogen? Because hydrogen is defined, or it is considered as a fuel of the future. Hydrogen has a lot of application, as you can see here. Hydrogen, when it is liquefied, it is used as an aviation fuel. In the Fischer-Tropsch process, which I had mentioned in the earlier slide, it's a catalytic process which involves different metals that can convert synthesis gas. Synthesis gas is a combination of hydrogen and carbon monoxide that can convert these two different gases to different green diesel and hydrocarbons. Hydrogen, which is also a component of syngas, can also be fermented by using different Clostridium and anaerobic bacteria to produce bioethanol by using syngas fermentation. And the most important application of hydrogen is realized in the electrochemical fuel cells and in the microbial fuel cells for bioelectricity generation. Now, hydrogen is considered as an advanced clean fuel, energy vector, and energy carrier because here in this process, when it is used in electrochemical cells and microbial fuel cells, it is used as an energy vector because ultimately it results in generation of bioelectricity, which is also another source of energy. Now, it is considered clean fuel because of its name itself, hydro and gen. Hydrogen is when it is burned or it is combusted, it simply produces water and energy. That is why it is considered a clean fuel. It does not have any emission, no carbon emission whatsoever. Hydrogen has a calorific value of around 142 kilojoules per gram, which is 4.8 times greater than that of ethanol. The ethanol and also 3 times greater than that of gasoline and 2.6 times greater than that of natural gas. Hydrogen could contribute nearly 34% of the total renewable energy supply of 69% by 2050. So there is a lot of potential of utilizing hydrogen as a source of energy. Now, apart from energy, hydrogen has also several other applications in industries. In the metallurgical industries, hydrogen is widely applied. In energy, fuels, and chemicals, hydrogen is utilized for upgrading of different biofuel-based products, and also it acts as a precursor for different reactions like hydrogenation reaction, hydrodeoxygenation reaction, and several other upgrading type reactions. And hydrogen, I had mentioned, it is used as a precursor material for different fuel cells to generate bioelectricity. It is also used in different aviation fuels. Hydrogen is also utilized in the drug discovery and in the pharmaceutical application. Hydrogen is very well known to be used in ammonia production and fertilizer production for farming and agriculture. Now, the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles are gaining popularity gradually in parallel with the electric hybrid vehicles. Now, this is you can see here, these are some of the few countries that have a maximum number of hydrogen fueling stations. Germany and Japan, followed by the United States, are now having more number of hydrogen fueling stations. And so there are several vehicles like Toyota are now coming up with the different vehicles that are now powered by the hydrogen powered fuel cells to generate bioelectricity. Now, these are some of the traditional technologies for hydrogen production. For example, the most popular ones being the steam reforming reaction, where the reforming of methane or natural gas is performed by using different catalysts and high temperature to produce hydrogen, alkali enhanced reforming, autothermal reforming, partial oxidation. And then there are some of the non-conventional, or I would say some of the cleaner conversion technologies, which include microorganisms like photofermentation and dark fermentation, where the different Clostridium species are utilized. These are the anaerobic bacteria, which are also responsible for ABE fermentation. They are involved in conversion of hydrogen to produce different or bioproduction of hydrogen from different waste residues and sugars. Some of the other technologies like dehydrogenation, photocatalysis, and electrocatalysis, as well as supercritical water gasification, are utilized to convert different waste residues to produce the biohydrogen. Now, since we spoke about hydrothermal gasification or supercritical water gasification for hydrogen generation, this is the typical flowchart of the process flow. So what exactly happens here in hydrothermal gasification is that biomass, when it is subjected to supercritical water gasification, it can involve catalyst or different non-catalytic pathway, and it produces different organic acids, phenols, and cresols. Now, further, these intermediate byproducts, they will further break down in the presence of supercritical water to different alcohols, aromatics, aldehydes, and ketones. Further, they will autocatalyze and they will further gasify to produce different gaseous fuels and permanent gases like carbon monoxide, methane, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen. And the gases selectively, they are, for example, methane and hydrogen and water, they can be undergoing steam reforming reaction to produce carbon monoxide and hydrogen, which can be subjected to water gas shift reaction, Fischer-Tropsch synthesis to produce different biohydrocarbons, as well as the carbon dioxide can be captured for enhanced oil recovery, underground storage, and sequestration in geological in deep seas, as well as the hydrogen can be used for hydrotreating, upgrading of the bio-oil, biofuels, transportation fuel, hydrogen fuel cells, ammonia production as a fertilizer, and different fuel upgrading techniques. Now, these are some of the sub-reactions, primary and secondary reactions that occur in the hydrothermal gasification. The primary being the supercritical water gasification itself, which is represented by these equations, and then the reforming of glucose, steam reforming of hydrocarbons, water gas shift reaction, methanation of carbon monoxide, methanation of carbon dioxide, hydrogenation reaction, and Baudard reaction. Baudard reaction results in carbon generation or biochar generation. Now we will come up with these equations in the subsequent slides when we discuss about the research data. Now, moving on to another waste, which is predominantly found not only in India, but the entire world. Food waste. India, according to the reports by the Economic Times, wastes around 244 crore worth of food in a single day. That's magnanimous. And also, India wastes as much food as the United Kingdom consumes. That's another study that it indicates. In Canada, we are also not lagging behind. Canada wastes around 873 pounds of food per person a year, making us one of the biggest wasters of food wasters on the planet. And in Canada, we throw around 31 billion of food every year. So that is one of the major wasting of the food and money. In the United States, a single US household trashes around $640 of food a year. Americans waste around 150,000 tons of food each day, and that is equal to a pound per person, according to a report by The Guardian. Now, there are several reasons for the food waste. For example, the overproduction versus distribution versus consumption. We must remember that food waste, processed or unprocessed fruits and vegetables, these are all perishable materials because they contain a lot of water and different acids, acidic value, and microorganisms on their surfaces. So if they're overproduced and if they're not distributed properly within the allocated shelf life to the different grocery stores and to the consumer level, they are about to decompose and being spoiled at the same time. So the second reason is damage to the fruits and vegetables during threshing. When during harvesting, there could be small nicks and small cuts in the vegetable. As a result of that, the microorganisms could enter into the fruits or vegetables and then spoil the fruit and vegetables meanwhile, as a result of spoilage by microorganisms due to natural causes or induced ones during threshing. Consumer behavior. This is something very important, and we are all very well known about that. We buy things when they are on sale, or we think of buying them because of making overwhelming purchases and then delayed consumption. We buy things, then we think of ordering food from Uber or somewhere else. So the food stays in our fridge and eventually decomposes, and then we have to throw that away. Cosmetic sorting of fruits and vegetables by supermarket for freshness and aesthetics. Have you ever seen any of such ugly looking food in the supermarket? I haven't seen, and I'm sure you have also not seen something like this. Even if you do, you would never ever choose to buy it. Now that's why the sorting in the grocery stores, all the fresh looking, nice looking and appealing type of vegetables and fruits are sorted and kept, so that these kind of foods are most appealing to the consumers, because when we buy, we want value for our investment and expenditure. So these kind of food materials mostly go for spoilage, and these are filtered out before they are being sorted in these shelves. So there is an approach of valorizing the food waste. For example, here in this study, we took a variety of different food waste, ranging from aloe vera rind, from banana peel, coconut shell, lemon peel, orange peel, pineapple residues, as well as sugarcane bagasse. And then we subjected all of these different residues for hydrothermal gasification, where we investigated the effect of temperature, pressure, feed concentration, as well as reaction time. And as a result of the gasification, hydrothermal gasification in the presence of supercritical water, we were able to generate hydrogen, carbon monoxide, methane, and carbon dioxide. Now, here is the effect of different temperatures when we gasified orange peel in the presence of supercritical water. So here you can see that as we increase the temperature, so the concentration of hydrogen kept on increasing from 0.08 millimole per gram to 0.91 millimole per gram when the temperature increased from 400 to 600 degrees Celsius. Now, as a result of that, So one of the features, you can see that all of the gases increasing, the hydrogen concentration increasing, methane concentration increasing, carbon dioxide concentration increasing at high temperature. But one of the gases that shows a reducing trend is that of the carbon monoxide, the one in red. So the carbon monoxide yield tends to gradually decrease as we increase the temperature. Now, this is because carbon monoxide was consumed in the water gas shift reaction. What is water gas shift reaction? Carbon monoxide mixes with water, which is known as water gas, to produce carbon dioxide and hydrogen. Because carbon monoxide was consumed at high temperature in the presence of water gas shift reaction, this resulted in the increasing concentration of hydrogen as well as carbon dioxide at high temperature. Now, methanation also is one of the reasons for the decreasing yield of carbon monoxide, where carbon monoxide mixes with the produced hydrogen to further produce methane and water. Now, because of the methanation reaction, the methane yields also increased. Now, the lower heating value of the gases, the lower heating value is energy density of the producer gas or the syngas. That is one of the indices to determine if it can be used as a direct fuel or not. So the lower heating value of the gases that were produced at 400 degrees Celsius were much lower than that of the gases that were produced at 600 degrees Celsius, as you can see here. Now, as we determined that 600 degrees Celsius resulted in high yields of hydrogen, which is our main product of interest, then we optimized that temperature here, and then we varied the effect of different residence time. So we increased the residence time from 15 to 45 minutes. And once again, what we noticed here was that the yield of hydrogen also increased gradually as we increased the residence time. And then the effect and also the yields of carbon dioxide increased, and that of the methane also increased. Once again, because of the water gas shift reaction that were favored at longer residence time, and methanation reaction, which were also promoted at longer reaction times. Once again here, the gas yields that were obtained at 15 minutes were much lower than that of the gas yields obtained at lower heating at 45 minutes, and the lower heating value or the energy density of the gases obtained at 45 minutes was also much higher than that of the energy density of the gases obtained at 15 minutes, as you can see here. Now, since 45 minutes gave us high yields of hydrogen and 600 minutes, which we optimized it, and then we investigated the effect of different feed concentration, 1:5 and 1:10. Now, 1:5 means 1 part of biomass and 5 parts of water. Now here 1:10 means 1 part of biomass and 10 parts of water. This was the water concentration in the reaction and biomass concentration in the reaction or within the reactor itself. Now, what we could notice here is, interestingly, when the water content increased in the reaction medium or in the high feed to feed concentration, the hydrogen yields increased. This is because of the presence of more water in the reaction medium than the biomass. Biomass acts as a solute, whereas water acts as a solvent. When there is more solvent molecules in the reaction medium during hydrothermal gasification, so the water breaks down to H plus and OH minus ions, and it also results in the release of different free radicals. These free radicals and ionic products of water, which were generated in a higher magnitude at higher water concentration in the 1:10 ratio, they resulted in easy solubilization of the material, of the food waste or any complex material, to produce more hydrogen gas. And moreover, since there is more solvent molecule or more water content in this 1:10 ratio, some of the hydrogen also came from the water as a result of the splitting of the water at high temperature in supercritical condition. Therefore, 1:10 ratio was optimal for high hydrogen yield. And then as we optimized the temperature as 600 degrees Celsius, residence time at 45 minutes, and feed biomass to water ratio as 1:10, then we investigated several other food waste that were investigated in the study. And the majority of the highest hydrogen yield were obtained from coconut shell, followed by this one, aloe vera rind, sugarcane bagasse, pineapple peel, orange peel, lemon peel, and then banana peel. Now, coconut shell resulted in high yields of hydrogen because of the presence of more lignin content in it. Lignin is quite high in coconut shell. Therefore, lignin resulted in easy solubilization in supercritical water and resulted in the yield of hydrogen. Now, the lower heating value of the gases are shown here. Once again, the lower heating value of the gases that were obtained from coconut shell resulted in high heating value, followed by sugarcane bagasse, aloe vera rind, orange peel, pineapple peel, lemon peel, and banana peel. This trend almost reflected to the trend of the hydrogen yields that were obtained from the hydrothermal gasification. Now moving on to another waste that is generated in India and the world, waste cooking oil. Now we do use cooking oil for frying stuff, for a variety of things, simply for cooking. But we do discard the cooking oil after several runs or several batches of cooking at high temperature. If we don't throw that, then it's going to cause some food poisoning or some sort of digestive issues. Why? Because of the generation of some of the aromatics and cyclic compounds that are obtained as a result of long-term usage of the cooking oil, hydrolysis of the cooking oil, and breaking down of the polymers or long-chain triglycerides in the cooking oil. Now, these are some of the facts in Canada, in India. Cooking oil suspected cause of for several deaths in India. Cooking with vegetable oil releases some toxic cancer-causing chemicals, as experts say. The cooking oil is mostly used for cooking, and after that it is mostly discarded, but it was a common practice to utilize the cooking oil as a cattle feed additive, so that it was believed that the cattle, the mass of the cattle, the biomass of the cattle would increase, and because of the consumption of the cattle oil. But because of these concerns of toxic cancer-causing compounds being found in the cooking oil, these are no longer, the cooking oil is no longer being used as a cattle feed additive. So the cooking oil, here are some of the statistical facts. Cooking oil or the vegetable oil are the triglycerides extracted from the plant sources, which are mostly edible. Examples include palm oil, soybean oil, rapeseed oil, sunflower seed oil, peanut oil, cottonseed oil, coconut oil, olive oil, and canola oil. The waste cooking oil generation in the United States is around 3.8 metric ton per annum. In Canada, it's 0.14 metric ton per annum. In the UK, it is 0.2 metric ton per annum. And in the entire world, it's 195 million tons per annum. You can imagine how much, what is the capacity of this waste residues that is generated in the entire world. So we also performed a hydrothermal gasification of waste cooking oil, and the results almost gave the similar trend. At high temperature, we got high hydrogen yields. At longer reaction time, we got high hydrogen yields, and at lower feed concentration, the yields of hydrogen and methane also increased. So here is a flow chart of the different process flow of different components. I have what we determined from the hydrothermal gasification of the waste cooking oil. So cooking oil in the virgin form, when we use it in our household for cooking in our kitchen, as a result of constant heating, oxidation, and polymerization reaction, as a result of prolonged frying or cooking in the same cooking oil over and over again, or even in the restaurants, the cooking oil can be considered a waste cooking oil, which is almost ready for throwing away. So that cooking oil, when it is subjected to supercritical water gasification, it undergoes hydrolysis, decomposition, and depolymerization to produce different long-chain fatty acids. Now, these long-chain fatty acids act as precursors for autohydrolysis, carbon-carbon bond cleavage, thermal cracking, and hydrogenation reaction to produce different short-chain fatty acids and unsaturated fatty acids. Now, further, in the hydrothermal gasification, as a result of decarbonylation, decarboxylation, these short-chain fatty acids and saturated fatty acid will further break down to different aliphatic hydrocarbons. Further, these aliphatic hydrocarbons, as a result of aromatization and cyclization, produce different aromatic and cyclic compounds. Now, I would like to point out another thing here. These aromatic and cyclic compounds could also result as a result because of prolonged heating, oxidation, and polymerization even in our household. And these compounds are extremely toxic, causing food poisoning and digestive problems in our household cooking if the same cooking oil is being used over and over again. Now, coming back into our hydrothermal gasification process. The aliphatic hydrocarbons further undergo thermal cracking and reforming reaction to produce different permanent gases like hydrogen, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and methane. And as a result of different sub-reaction like water gas shift reaction, methanation, hydrogenation reaction, several other and also secondary reactions, some other hydrocarbon gases can also be generated like ethylene, acetylene, and ethane, and methane, and other C2 plus gases. Now, this schematic was mostly determined by mass spectrophotometry as well as nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopic analysis. So as a result of hydrothermal gasification, we got hydrogen gas, and we also got the different effluents from the waste cooking oil. Now, these are some of the effluents. In the cooking oil, you can see here, now sorry about this mistake, it should be cooking oil. Now, cooking oil, as you can see here, it contains different propionic acid, acetic acid, and acetone in the virgin form, the waste cooking oil. Now, as a result of the effluent gasification that was performed at 475 degrees Celsius and 675 degrees Celsius, the liquid effluents were collected from the gasification reaction. The effluents collected from 475 degrees Celsius showed the increased concentration of acetone, acetic acid, and propionic acid. Whereas when the effluents or the gasification was performed at high temperature, the concentration of this acetone and acetic acid further reduced, and so as the concentration of glycerol and methanol. Now, these components reduced because they were further cracked to produce different permanent gases like hydrogen and methane at high temperatures. One of the factors that showed increase in the concentration was a concentration of the phenols and phenolic compounds in the effluents at 475 and 675 degrees Celsius. Now, it also indicates that these are mostly the platform chemicals and some of the high value materials. Now, the gasification not only results in biofuel products like hydrogen yields and biomethane yields, it also could result in different essential biochemicals in the liquid effluents. Moving on to the next process, thermochemical process, which is known as pyrolysis. Now, pyrolysis is a process, as the name suggests, pyro means fire and lysis means breakdown. Breaking down to any solid material as a result of heat and heat energy is known as pyrolysis, but the process must be performed under an inert atmosphere. Pyrolysis predominantly generates three different products, and these products are in three different states. In the solid state of product, biochar is obtained. Biochar is nothing but a carbon-rich material, which is also known as biocarbon, or sometimes it is also known as biocharcoal, but it should not be confused that it is coming from charcoal. It is coming from wood, so it can be called wood char. So the biochar contains mostly aromatic carbon and ash. The bio oil contains two different phases. One is aqueous phase. This is a bio oil. It contains aqueous phase, which is mostly the watery phase containing liquid acids, alcohols, and water. Whereas the organic phase mostly contains the oil-rich or the hydrocarbon-rich components, such as aldehydes, ketones, aromatics, olefins, paraffin, and phenols. Gases, on the other hand, are also obtained, and this gas is known as producer gas or pyrolysis gas, which is a combination of hydrogen, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, methane, ethylene, acetylene, C2 plus gases, and water vapor. Now, the pyrolysis process can be broadly categorized into two different processes. One is a slow pyrolysis and the other one is a fast pyrolysis. And in the slow pyrolysis, as the name suggests, slow heating rates are involved here. Heating rates that range from 0.1 to 1 degree Celsius and at relatively lower temperatures of 300 to 500 degrees Celsius. And the longer vapor residence times are involved, around 10 to 100 minutes here. Now, in the fast pyrolysis, high reaction times are involved, high reaction temperatures are involved, for example, 400 to 600 degrees Celsius. Faster heating rates ranging from 10 to 200 degrees Celsius per second are involved, whereas the vapor residence time is extremely short, less than 10 seconds, which means that when the biomass is cooked under an inert atmosphere, the inert atmosphere is mostly generated in pyrolysis with the application of nitrogen gas. So as the biomass undergoes thermal cracking in the pyrolysis, it liberates some of the volatile vapor. So those volatile vapor, if it is kept for longer duration to slowly cook, then it results in the formation of biochar and reduces the yields of bio oil. But as these volatile vapors are released, and if they're immediately pushed into a condenser or a chiller, then these volatile vapors will start to condense and produce these condensable liquids or the bio oil, which is the case in the fast pyrolysis. So in the here in slow pyrolysis, mostly biochar is obtained, and biochar has so many other applications which we will be looking into in the next slides. And in the bio oil, which is more obtained from the fast pyrolysis, can be used as a drop-in biofuel in combined heat and power application. Or bio oil, the mass spectrophotometry analysis has determined that bio oil contains more than 400 different biochemical products that can be utilized, that can be fractionated, and it can be further utilized as a precursor to recover these biochemicals. But one of the factors that impact the direct usage of bio oil is the content of heteroatoms. Therefore, bio oil requires some sort of upgrading using different catalysts or in the non-catalytic way for its usage as a transportation fuel. Now, when bio oil is used, is catalytically upgraded, the technologies that are involved include hydrotreating or hydrogenation, hydrocracking or catalytic cracking, esterification, and transesterification. In the non-catalytic pathways for bio oil upgrading, emulsification are used, solvent addition is used, where liquid extraction is involved, supercritical fluids like supercritical carbon dioxide or subcritical water upgrading is involved, and then electrochemical stabilization is also one of the non-catalytic pathways to upgrade the bio oil. Now, why are bio oil upgrading required, and what does it do? So the upgrading of the bio oil with the application of this technology, it reduces the levels of the heteroatoms. So when I say heteroatoms, it includes oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur. Now, these oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur in the bio oil mostly comes from the biomass precursor itself, because biomass, plant-based biomass, mostly contains, it's a heterogeneous material. So it contains oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur depending on what kind of source it is coming from. So those metals, these inorganic metals or organic metals, will end up in the bio oil also. And it is very much essential to remove it. If we do not remove it from the bio oil, then as a result of combustion, it will result in emissions that contain oxygen. For example, carbon dioxide. It will also result in emission containing NOx as well as SOx. Therefore, it is very much essential to remove these heteroatoms. Now, the second requirement for bio oil upgrading is to reduce the acidity of the biocrude oil. Bio oil tend to be little acidic because of the presence of acids and alcohols in the bio oil. And these, the acidity of the bio oil results in its instability and also its corrosiveness to the reactor itself. Therefore, when we upgrade it, we reduce the acidity and kind of neutralizes or at a slightly higher pH, so that it becomes stable and it maintains its stability for longer duration of time without causing any corrosion to the reactors or the pyrolyzer. Now, one interesting factor to note that when we remove the oxygen level or moisture level, then we tend to directly increase the heating value of a material. So the heating value of the bio oil is further increased. And as the heating value is increased, the fuel properties will also increase. The flowability of the bio oil is also enhanced. And then the emissions will be reduced because of the reduction in this heteroatoms level. And polymerization is also, repolymerization chances are reduced, because when the bio oil is less viscous as well as it is less acidic, then it is not going to be polymerizing. It will maintain its stability for a longer duration of time, and as well as it will be thermally stable, as we discussed. So these are some of the advantages of bio oil upgrading. Now, moving on to one of our experiments that we did on food waste. In this paper, what we did is this is impact of different temperature on food waste. It was one of the studies that was done by a student, which is actually, in fact, alumni of C.V. Raman Institute, Vishwaranjan Patra. He is one of our students at the University of Saskatchewan here, and he completed his master's degree. And this is a study based on his research work. So, where we did in this study, what we did is we took food waste consisting of food waste that we collected from a local restaurant, and then we pyrolyzed it at different temperatures. So what we noticed here is that when we increase the temperature, so the bio oil yield, the biochar yield tends to decrease. Because if you remember, I mentioned that pyrolysis results in biochar, bio oil, and gases. Now, these are the three different products, and these are the mass distribution. So the biochar is shown in gray color here. You can see the yield of biochar decreasing as we increase the temperature. The bio oil shown in red shows a high yield at 500 degrees Celsius, after which it tends to decrease at 600 degrees Celsius. And the gas yields tend to increase constantly as we increase the temperature. Now, the effect of reaction time also shows something similar effect, where the yield of biochar tends to be high in the case of pyrolysis obtained at lower reaction time of 30 minutes. And when we increase the temperature at 60 minutes, the bio oil yield also tends to decrease along with that of the biochar yield, but the gas yields tend to increase at longer durations. So what it indicates is that there is always a equilibrium point or a sweet spot for the bio oil, and the bio oil yield are typically high in the range of 450 to 550 degrees Celsius for most of the feedstocks, if not all. So when we used food waste, we found that the bio oil yield was high at 500 degrees Celsius, because when we further increase the temperature, secondary reactions could come into play, and because of the secondary reactions, the bio oil yield is suppressed and the gas yields are enhanced, which shows that the gas yields are enhanced or the gasification reactions within the pyrolysis are enhanced at high temperature and longer reaction times, because these are considered the secondary reactions. Now, coming to the thermogravimetric analysis of different biochar-based products which are obtained from the food waste. Now, thermogravimetric analysis is an analysis that determines the thermal stability of solid fuel. So it also determines the devolatilization behavior. So what you could see here is the food waste, which is shown in the black color here. It shows maximum weight loss at 600 degrees Celsius because it's untreated, and it contains a wide variety of different volatile matter, and it contains a lot of moisture content because it's a food waste. And when the biochar, which were produced, we can see here the biochar produced at 300, 400, and 500 degrees Celsius, as well as 600 degrees Celsius, 30 minutes and 60 minutes. As we increase the severity of the pyrolysis, which means when we keep on increasing the temperature and reaction time, you can see that the biochar tends to be more thermally stable and shows very little weight loss. It starts from 100 degrees Celsius and the weight loss finishes somewhere around 95, which shows only 5% weight loss for the biochars which are produced at extremely high temperatures and long reaction times. This indicates that the biochar produced at high temperature and longer reaction time are thermally stable because of different aromatization properties or increase in the concentration of carbon-carbon single and double bonds. To further confirm this, we did a solid-state NMR spectroscopy, nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. This is, once again, the bottommost spectra is for the food waste, and the middlemost spectra is for food waste biochar generated at 300 degrees Celsius, and then the one in the blue shows the biochar which is generated at 600 degrees Celsius. You can see that there is these two peaks which were not initially present in the food waste but appeared in the biochar, were produced at 300 and 600, but the peak at 600 degrees Celsius seems to be more intense. So these peaks relate to aromatic and vinylic groups, aromatic carbon groups. And whereas there were some components which were initially present in the food waste like aliphatic groups, and gradually they lost their intensity and completely absent in the case of biochar produced at 600 degrees Celsius, which indicates that these organic compounds, as a result of different deamination, decarboxylation, dehydrogenation, which means basically thermally cracking of the organic residues to produce different permanent gases and bio oil. But in the biochar, what happens is the carbon-carbon bond strengthens, and then these aromatic carbon moieties are enhanced when the biochar is produced at high temperature, indicating the enhance or promotion of the aromatization reactions. Now, these are the scanning electron microscopy of the food waste, which you can see here on this figure here. This is the untreated food waste. Shows almost a very rigid and a very intact structure. But when the biochar produced at 300 degrees Celsius and 600 degrees Celsius was done, you can see that the structure of this biochar shows more disintegration when it was generated at even high temperature. So we also did a scanning, we also did a BET surface area analysis of the biochar produced at 600 degrees Celsius. and 300 degrees Celsius, we found that the biochar produced at a higher temperature tend to have a higher surface area and porosity because of the liberation of these organic residues and devolatilization and generation of more porous and graphitic or aromatic carbon in the biochar. Now, here is a CHNS, or the ultimate analysis of the food waste derived biochar and bio-oil. Now, this table shows the CHNS analysis of biochar, which shows the composition of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, and oxygen. These are the organic elements which are present in the biochar and bio-oil or any solid material. Now, here, as you can see that the food waste biochar has a carbon content of around 41 weight%, but the carbon content tends to increase and kept increasing up to 58 weight% when the biochar was obtained at 600 degrees Celsius. On the other hand, the hydrogen yields tends to decrease with the increase in the temperature and severity of pyrolysis, so as the nitrogen content, whereas the oxygen content also decreased. Now, when the oxygen content decreases in a solid or liquid fuel and the carbon content increases, the heating value or the energy density naturally increases, which we saw in the slide relating to the upgrading of the bio-oil. Now, this is what you can see here. The heating value or the energy density of the food waste biomass was around 17 millijoules per kilogram, and it went up to 22 millijoules per kilogram in the biochar, which was produced at the higher temperature. Now, the pH of the biochar was also at a very was also in a range of alkalinity, because biochar tends to contain most of the alkali metals from the biomass, and the alkali metals could be sodium, potassium, nitrogen, phosphorus, and since it was a food waste, it tends to contain some of the essential elements also. Now, coming to the bio-oil, the CHNS analysis of the bio-oils also shows the same trend as that of the biochar. So the bio-oil yield also tend to have high carbon content and high hydrogen content and lower oxygen content when they're produced at higher temperatures. Now, once again, as the carbon content increased and decreased in the oxygen content, so the heating value of the bio-oil was also increasing gradually with the increase in the temperature. Now, finally, coming to torrefaction. Torrefaction is a thermochemical process which I had mentioned, as also commonly known as roasting of the feedstock. Now, torrefaction becomes essential for solid fuels to enhance their heating value. Now, when we speak about biomass, biomass itself is heterogeneous because it comes from a variety of sources. It comes from agricultural residues, it comes from forestry residues, it could come from municipal solid waste, it could come from sewage sludge, and several other waste residues. So what exactly happens to biomass and why it is not directly useful for burning or incineration? Because biomass contains a lot of moisture content in inherent or as is collected form. And because of the high moisture content, the calorific value of the biomass is also in a lower side. Biomass tends to absorb moisture from the atmosphere, therefore it is hygroscopic and it has got low grindability, it has got high volatile content, it has got very high volume. And because of the high volume, it is also very less dense. The bulk density is lower, and it has got non-uniform properties. For example, the municipal solid waste obtained in the United States will be different than the municipal solid waste obtained in Canada. The municipal solid waste obtained in Canada will be different from the one that is obtained in Delhi, and the one that is found in Delhi will be different than what is found in Bhubaneswar. Because it all depends on the type of the region and the type of the locality and the type of people and the society, different types of waste that is generated. And also the wheat straw that is obtained in North America will have slightly different properties than that is obtained in India because of the local climatic condition as well as the different farming condition. Because of the non-uniform properties, biomass tends to be very difficult to handle as a solid fuel. Now, when it is torrefied, what exactly happens is, as you can see here, roasting at temperature around 200 to 300 degrees Celsius at 10 to 60 minutes, and it will under an inert atmosphere. So the biomass or the torrefied biomass loses its moisture content. Because it loses its moisture content, the heating value or the calorific value of the biomass increases. It becomes hydrophobic, which means it will generally tend to repel the moisture content, and it has got better grindability. It can be pelletized. Since it can be pelletized, it has a low volatile content, it has less volume, and it has got high bulk densities, and the properties of the torrefied biomass can be can be made more uniform after torrefaction. So after torrefaction. So after, what happens here is, when the biomass is pelletized, the volume is reduced and it is shrunk, and so more energy and more dense material in a very small volume or small packets that can be transported to long durations for application as a fuel for combustion or incineration. Now, there are different catalysts that can be involved in different thermochemical and hydrothermal conversion technologies. The catalyst can be categorized as homogeneous catalyst, heterogeneous catalyst, carbonaceous catalyst, and organic catalyst. Now, as you can see here, the examples of the homogeneous catalyst, which is mostly alkali and oxides, carbonates, examples are mentioned here. There are several advantages of homogeneous catalysts. For example, they lead to carbon-carbon bond cleavage, they lead to better water-gas shift reaction in hydrothermal conversion, faster conversion rates, flexibility for use in different batch reactors, negligible or no sintering, and there is a possibility of carbon dioxide sequestration in the form of carbonates that are formed in the hydrothermal conversion. However, there are some of the limitations that are obtained, such as plugging in the continuous reactors. Corrosion and material deterioration is also one of the major limitations. And one of the major factors or the bottlenecks is these homogeneous catalysts could rarely be recycled or recaptured after the gasification. They will mostly end up in the products or the residues, solid residues. On the other hand, heterogeneous catalysts, these are mostly the transition metals, as examples mentioned here: nickel, ruthenium, platinum, palladium, and so on. The advantages are they're mostly used on the catalyst support, and they have got high selectivity and catalytic activity. There is a possibility to recover and reuse this catalyst because they are supported on different supported materials, and the supported materials could be recovered easily after, and they could improve the gasification and pyrolysis efficiency, and they generally tend to reduce the coke and tar formation. But the limitations are catalyst sintering, poisoning, and deactivation because of the formation of these heteroatoms on the surface, which tend to block the pores of the porous catalyst support. And also the support itself, or these these metals like nickel, ruthenium, palladium, these transition metals are generally in expensive side. So using heterogeneous catalysts could be slightly expensive in the industrial perspective. Carbonaceous catalysts are also one of the eco-friendly approaches that has less impact on the environment, unlike the heterogeneous and homogeneous catalyst that require the effluents required pre-treatment and remediation before it can be disposed of into the water stream. The carbonaceous catalysts, mostly involving supports like activated carbon, carbon nanotubes, templated carbon, and graphitic carbon. They have less coking because these are mostly made of carbon, and there is a possibility to recover and reuse. The functionalization and surface modification is possible through advanced engineering of this carbon material. And but the limitations are they are prone to chemisorption and difficulty to recover the catalyst because these are mostly made of carbon, and they will easily mix with the carbon or the biochar as a solid residue that is obtained from biochar. So it is very difficult to differentiate which one was a catalyst support and which is actually a product. So that causes some disturbance in the product distribution and estimation of the solids, liquid, and gases after doing a mass balance. So the organic catalysts, these are some of the new advanced processes where the biomass is used as a reactant and is also used as a support of the catalyst. Now here, complete precipitation of biomass and the catalyst is possible, which is a major advantages. And also the limitations are these are prone to chemisorption, difficulty in catalyst recovery, once again because the biomass will convert into biochar, which will and the metals which are present in the biomass inherently, they will also they could interfere with the metals that are doped into the biomass. And these type of catalyst supports are very less explored, but we did successfully perform this experiment in one of our studies. So here we took nickel, we tried to impregnate nickel catalyst onto the biomass species. There are two different sets of experiment. One was the experimental and the other one is control. Now what we did is we took water and we added nickel nitrate hexahydrate into this water, and we added biomass into that. in the experimental, but in the control, there was no nickel nitrate solution. It was just water and biomass. And for 72 hours, the solution and the solute and solution were mixed together so that the nickel present in the nickel nitrate solution will penetrate into the biomass cell wall and then end up in to generate nano nickel particles. So after that, the slurry was filtered, and then the different biomass impregnated and the control biomass were air dried and then further investigated for gasification experiments. So this is a nickel impregnated feedstocks, and this is a control biomass. Now we did an ICP analysis, inductively coupled plasma analysis of the pine wood and wheat straw, because these are the two feedstocks that were taken. This is a control feedstock where it was just water mixed for 72 hours, no nickel nitrate, and here in nickel nitrate hexahydrate solution and nickel nitrate hexahydrate solution with pine wood and wheat straw mixed together for 72 hours. So as you can see here, where we added nickel, so pine wood and both pine wood and wheat straw were able to absorb those nickel through their cell wall. But wheat straw, being a herbaceous residue, resulted in higher accumulation because we added the same amount of nickel nitrate to both the feedstocks. But wheat straw resulted in better accumulation, superior accumulation or adsorption of this nickel compared to that of pine wood. Now, this was because of the makeup of the wheat straw itself. Wheat straw is a porous material and it's a herbaceous residue, whereas pine wood is a woody, and it's a woody material. It's highly fibrous and it contains more lignin. That's what we determined. Now, because of the presence of lignin, and if you recall in some of the earlier slides where I mentioned that lignin acts as a barrier between the external environment and the internal plasma of the cell. Now, because of the presence of more lignin in the pine wood, that acted as a barrier preventing the adsorption of nickel from the solution into the cell, into the pine wool cell. But wheat straw resulted, since it had relatively less lignin content, it adsorbed more nickel. Now, we also did some confirmatory studies to determine how well the nickel was impregnated into the feedstock. PW indicates pine wood and WS indicates wheat straw. So these are the two control feedstocks you can see, and this is the SEM-EDS, electron dispersive spectrophotometry analysis. You can see here that there is no nickel present here, but in the pine wood impregnated nickel feedstock, you can see the presence of some of the nickel peaks. So as that of the wheat straw, there was no presence of nickel, and the nickel appeared in the case of wheat straw when it was impregnated and mixed with the solution. Now, these are the transmission electron microscopy images of control pine wood as well as the nickel impregnated pine wood. Once again, you can see this is the cell wall. You can clearly see cell wall, and these are some of the droplet-like structure, fine dots. These are nothing but the nickel nanoparticles that were generated in the pine wood cell, and these are the wheat straw. Once again, fine dot-like structure. If it is still visible at your resolution, you can see that these fine dot-like structures are nothing but the nickel nanoparticles, which were confirmed in the SEM-EDS studies and also seen in the transmission electron microscopy. Now, after we determined that, we also did a hydrothermal gasification, supercritical water gasification of the two feedstocks. And what we determine here is, I'm showing you only for the pine wood. You can see this is the control pine wood and the nickel impregnated pine wood. You can easily see that the yield of hydrogen in the nickel impregnated pine wood increased drastically when compared to that of control pine wood. And along with the nickel, hydrogen yields, the yield of all the gases, especially methane, also increased, because nickel has a catalytic effect in both methanation and hydrogenation reaction, as well as water gas shift reaction. So it resulted in the decrease in the carbon monoxide yield, and then resulting in the production of more hydrogen and more methane when it was impregnated into the biomass itself. So this study determined that biomass can act as a reactant and also as a catalyst support that can adsorb the nickel metals or any catalyst nanoparticle metals within it, and can be effectively converted into different biochar and into the combustible gases. Now we are approaching towards the ending of this presentation with a few more slides remaining. So you can see that this is a schematic representation of how biofuels can be carbon neutral and how biochar can be carbon negative. Now, As we all know, because of photosynthesis, the plants absorb sunlight and utilize carbon dioxide to produce carbohydrates as a result of photosynthesis. Now, carbohydrates are the source of energy for the plants, and they reside in the form of biomass. Let's call them biomass. After the crop is harvested, what remains, like straw, bagasse, they're mostly biomass. When we take that biomass and we pyrolyze it or gasify it, I'm showing only pyrolysis here as a case study. When we pyrolyze the biomass, we produce bio oil and gases. Bio oil is further upgraded. I showed you some of the upgrading technologies. After upgrading, when it is combusted, it will definitely result in the production of carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is taken up by the fresh plants as a result of photosynthesis. So this process becomes carbon neutral because there is no net accumulation of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The carbon dioxide produced from the bioproducts is also taken up by the fresh biomass with no accumulation. On the other hand, pyrolysis also results in biochar. Biochar is nothing but a carbon-rich material, and it's a source. It's a storehouse of carbon that can be used traditionally as a soil amendment agent. When it is added into the soil, it traps that carbon in the soil for a longer period of time, thus keeping that carbon locked for hundreds and thousands of years in the soil and slowly releasing that carbon as organic matter in the soil and helping in the plant productivity. So the process becomes carbon negative because that extra carbon coming from the biomass is kept hidden under the earth, in the soil. So the process of application of biochar, when it is integrated to biorefinery, can make the process carbon negative, and the bioils could be carbon neutral. Biochar has so many applications. Now, this is a paper that we published in the Waste and Biomass Valorization in 2016, and it was awarded as the best paper award published in that journal in that year. So this you can see that this is a hand-drawn image where it shows the evolution of biochar as a result of temperature, increase in the temperature in pyrolysis, carbonization, torrefaction, or gasification. Now, as we increase the temperature, what increases in the process is the aromatic carbon contained in the biochar will increase, so as the ash content, pH value, surface area, and pore volume. You can see that the porosity or the particle size of the biochar tends to decrease when it is produced at high temperature. But when the biochar is produced at lower temperature, certainly what will happen is the yield of the biochar will be at a higher side, so as the volatile content, conductivity, and cation exchange capacity. But when the application of biochar is more intended towards adsorption application or thermal applications, then the biochar which is produced at high temperatures should be more preferred. Now, these are some of the applications of biochar. Biochar, as you can see, because of its porous nature, it can be used in different chemical industries and in biorefineries as a catalyst support, as an adsorbent for purifying the flue gases or the emissions from the industries, from the chimneys, as well as activated column for wastewater treatment. Most of us have AquaGuard in our houses or several other water purification systems. So the column that we mostly use contains activated carbon. So these activated carbon are highly porous materials that traps the different pollutants or different ions from the wastewater or from the raw crude groundwater and helps purifying the wastewater. Now, this porosity of the biochar can be further enhanced by activation processes. The activation can be through physical activation or different chemical activation. Now, as a result of the chemical and physical activation, activated charcoal is produced, and the activated carbon can have a surface area many magnitude higher than that of the biochar. For example, just a tablespoonful of activated charcoal can have a surface area of more than a cricket ground. You can imagine how large the surface area could be. For example, the activated carbon can have surface area of more than 2,000 meters square per gram. So because of this advanced porosity applications, the activated carbon can be used for different pharmaceutical applications. It is used in different tablet forms, and it is administered. It could be administered for patients suffering from extreme cases of food toxification, food poisoning, or even in the pets that have accidentally taken some food that are toxic or they don't do very well. So this activated carbon, as it is administered orally, so it passes on into the gut, and it traps these different toxins and acts as antidote and excretes out in the fecal matter. And most of you have also seen some of these videos on Instagram or even in the Facebook where this black color mask is used, face mask. So these contains mostly activated charcoal. And also the toothpaste or soaps now come with activated carbon, which now cleanses the dead skin cells from our body. So the other applications of biochar are it can be used as a co-fuel for co-firing, gasification, and combustion along with coal to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. Traditionally, biochar is used in agronomical application to enhance the soil conditions, as a soil fertility, soil carbon content, as well as to retain the moisture. The biochar, since it contains mostly carbon, so it can, when it is added into the soil, it traps the carbon in the soil for a longer period of time, thus helping in carbon capture and sequestration. Biochar, since it is mostly carbon-rich material, that can be further carbonized or engineered to produce different biocomposite applications, different fuel cells, and different photovoltaics application. So there are more new applications of biochar keeping on emerging every day, and there is a lot of market for the biochar in the coming days. And since it is coming from a renewable material, and it is also biodegradable, so it has a lot of application in terms of industrial applications to clean the environment as well as a fuel. So the roles of biochar in soil and crop improvement are outlined here. Biochar contains different alkali and alkaline earth metals that can neutralize the acidic soil. Biochar retains different microelements such as sodium, potassium, and phosphorus that can help supply essential plant nutrients to the plant root. And the biochar forms a complex with the soil and plant root to prevent soil erosion. Biochar has satisfactory soil retention, water retention ability to prevent the soil moisture from drying out. And biochar enhances many soil properties like texture, fertility, water content, salinity, nutrient content, and organic matter, especially humus. And biochar also holds a stable carbon in the soil, helping in carbon capture and sequestration. It promotes crop productivity, and biochar can hold beneficial bacteria like Pseudomonas, Azospirillum, and fungi like mycorrhiza within its porous structures to help supply slowly the plant growth promoting hormones and aid in the carbon capture and fixation. And most important and exciting of all is these pores of the biochar can also act as small niche or house for these plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, both bacteria and fungi, from the bacterial grazers like nematodes and protozoa. So they feel safe and they can form different biofilms and reside within the pores of the biochar. Now, biomass also inherently contains several minerals and different metals in the form of ash. As you can see here, different mineral matter, for example, anhydrite, apatite, ansinite, calcite, dolomite. These are some of the metals containing that can be found in a variety of different feedstocks, and they also have some of the beneficial effects when they're applied into the soil. Now, finally, some of the key consideration that we had in this presentation. Let's define it into divide it into strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What we saw that the renewable resource, the strengths of the biorefining processes could be identified as these are renewable resources. They are carbon neutral. Cracking of recalcitrant feedstocks is possible through thermochemical technologies. These there is a flexibility to enhance the product selectivity by using certain catalysts, as we saw. The weaknesses are these are some of the thermochemical processes could be expensive because of the high temperature and high pressure involved. There is a variability in the engineering reactors, which could also they could also impact the product yield. And the salt precipitation, fouling, and corrosion some of the major issues that are encountered in hydrothermal technologies, especially supercritical water gasification, because of the diversity and heterogeneity of the feedstocks and the composition of the feedstock itself. The metal and the biocatalyst poisoning and recovery issues are also some of the common bottlenecks that needs to be addressed and is considered one of the weaknesses. The opportunities are there is a wide application of the byproducts, potential rise in the market dynamics, promising technology adaptation, and the market research predict there will be a rise in the demand for the green products in the future. The threats are there is a threat of new entry into the commercial market. There is a competitive landscape in the demand and cost, potential compatibility issue with the existing infrastructures. That is one of the threats. Now, finally, summarizing the take-home message, what we discussed in this presentation are lignocellulosic biomasses contain cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin as biopolymers with diverse applications. Torrefaction is one of the thermochemical processes that produces solid fuels with high calorific value, bulk density, hydrophobicity, and reduced volume. Slow pyrolysis produces high-quality biochar, whereas fast pyrolysis results in energy-dense bio-oil. Hydrothermal gasification involves hydrolysis, ionic and free radical mechanisms, water gas shift reaction, methanation, hydrogenation, and Baudard reaction. These are some of the sub-reactions that occur within hydrothermal gasification and have a direct impact on the product yield. The parameters that affect the bioproduct yield include temperature, reaction time, feed concentration, catalyst type, and loading, as well as the feedstock properties. Biocarbon or biochar has a greater carbon content, alkalinity, thermal stability, porosity, and heating value. Finally, the life cycle and techno-economic analysis are extremely necessary to determine the biomass supply chain, carbon emissions, marketability of the byproduct, as well as the circular economy. And continual research and development efforts can address the bottlenecks relating to the biomass pretreatment, process efficiency, product yield, separation, as well as upgrading. Finally, I would like to thank my former supervisors in my PhD and postdoctoral research, Professor A.J. Dalai, who is a distinguished professor and Kennedy Research Chair in the Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering at University of Saskatchewan. My PhD supervisor, Professor Janusz Kozinski, who is the professor and dean currently at the Faculty of Engineering in Lakehead University in Ontario, Canada. And my postdoc supervisor, Professor Franco Berruti, who is the professor and industrial research chair and the director of Institute of Chemicals and Fuels from Alternative Resources at Western University in Ontario, Canada. And finally, the results that I have shown here in this presentation came from my PhD and postdoctoral research, which were funded by NSERC, BioFuelNet Canada, and MITAX. These are some of the funding agencies in Canada. And most of the research were performed and the analytical facilities were assessed from Saskatchewan Structural Sciences Center, Canadian Light Source, as well as the collaboration with NASA, especially in hydrothermal and supercritical water gasification. Thank you so much for your kind attention, and I'll be very happy to discuss if any questions that you might have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insightful talk. So participant, if you have any question, please ask.
Yes, sir. BC sir, I think want to tell something.
No. I mean, if there are no questions, I just wanted to say, have an idea on, as already in the threats and in the weakness, cost issues have been mentioned. What is the figure of merit in terms of, torrefied, hydrocarbons and their energy generation capability when you look at the circular economy process in a holistic way?
That is a very good question, dear Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. So the cost analysis is extremely critical in order to determine the feasibility of these processes. So torrefaction is one of the very mild processes for reducing the moisture content, and it does not involve much of the cost involved, because the process temperature are somewhere around 200 to 300 degrees Celsius, or sometimes it is even lower, because water present in the biomass starts to devolatilize at 100 degrees Celsius. So mild temperatures of 100 to 200 degrees Celsius are quite enough to roast the feedstock in torrefaction and remove the moisture content, so that as we remove the moisture content, the feedstock becomes quite dry and the heating value increases. So that is one of the, I would say, the most reasonable of all thermochemical processes to produce a solid fuel. But once again, we must also remember that different processes are available to produce different types of products. Torrefaction is a process to produce solid fuel, and it is one of the cheaper processes. Liquefaction is a process to produce a liquid fuel, biocrude oil. Pyrolysis produces both liquid fuels, bio oil, as well as biochar. And hydrothermal gasification produces syngas, hydrogen synthesis gas, and biochar. So among all the different processes, torrefaction, thermochemical processes, torrefaction is one of the reasonable because it involves lower temperature and mild conditions, whereas gasification, especially hydrothermal gasification or conventional gasification, they are mostly the costly processes because hydrogen generation from steam reforming is still preferred in many parts of the world because it is one of the, although it uses natural gas as a precursor, one of the fossil fuels to produce hydrogen, but it is cheaper because of the catalyst involved. And hydrothermal gasification does not use any fossil fuel, and it uses bioresources. But because of the involvement of supercritical water, the reactors could be corrosive, and that requires maintenance, and therefore the cost is quite high in hydrothermal gasification processes.
Sorry for one more tough question, but I mean, if I were to use zeolite and look at some of your densified, porous nanostructured torrefaction-based solids, can I use them in which applications do you think they would be a superior material compared to zeolite if I have to use it as absorbent for some application?
Torrefaction, in torrefaction is the purpose of torrefaction is to produce solid fuels. So the solid fuel that is produced from torrefaction is not necessarily used as an adsorbent application because it will still retain some of the volatile matter and that is prone to degradation. Rather, the biochar that is produced from pyrolysis or from gasification, or which is further activated at temperatures around 900 to 1000 degrees Celsius, could produce activated carbon, and these are engineered activated carbon, and they could be further functionalized with some metals, active metals, and that can be somewhat similar to that of zeolites or silica alumina. So that involves some of the cost in the process. But torrefaction derived products are not necessarily used for adsorption applications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the wonderful talk and a great overview of a subject I had no clue, but it gives so much of opportunity, so many matrices for looking at processes, systems, monitoring, and of course reactions, and huge opportunity to collaborate or work. And so thank you very much for a great talk.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you for your kind words. Much appreciated.
Any other question?
Sir, actually, in the chat box, so many participants need your presentation. It is very informative, so they want your PPT to share with them.
Sure. I will try to have some slides for them for circulation. I'll send it to you, Dr. Anjita, later on.
Okay, thank you, sir. And it is very informative. I know. Any questions from the participant, please? Any questions for the participant? You can take it in chat box, or you can share it with us, so we can float it to the Sir Sunil sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think no question from the participant. So again, thank you, sir.
Okay, one question
I see that. That's a very good question. Is biobutanol production viable? Okay.
Yes.
I'll try to answer this one the question comes from Sangeeta Agrawal. No, I'm sorry. The question comes from Subha Pranesh. Is biobutanol production viable? Biobutanol production is not that viable because bioethanol production is quite easier, and it is used by Saccharomyces cerevisiae to ferment mostly the hexose sugars. Although there are a lot of potential for biobutanol production, it is still not industrially viable because butanol, although it is not toxic for human, and it is also very flexible, it has got very high heating value and superior properties as a fuel over ethanol. But in the production process, biobutanol suffers from product inhibition. The microorganisms that are producing butanol, especially Clostridium acidobutylicum, they suffer from product inhibition itself because of their layer. These are gram-negative bacteria, and the butanol that is produced in the titration medium, it tends to dissolve the cell membrane of the bacteria and leading to their cell death and cell lysis. So there is a way to the butanol that is intermittently produced that needs to be taken out continuously from the fermentation medium, and that adds to a lot of cost. Another problem is the bacteriophage infection. The bacteriophage infection, these are mostly viruses, and viruses tend to eat the bacteria. Viral infection is mostly happens in the biobutanol fermentation, and they tend to graze on Clostridium species. One of the limitations, once again, contamination of the medium. The second reason is, the third cause is the butanol, since it causes product inhibition to the bacteria. If it is not removed from the fermentation medium, the bacteria it ceases production of butanol, and it does not utilize the remaining sugars. There will be still a lot of sugars present in the fermentation medium, but the bacteria will not simply utilize, because either they will die, or in order to survive, they will form a cyst on their surface, on their cell wall. Now, because they form cysts, they go into kind of a hibernation state, and that prevents the utilization of the sugars that is present in the fermentation medium. So the fermentation kind of is an unsuccessful process, and the final butanol yield is low. Because of several processes, these are some of the challenges in butanol production. And another challenge is it is difficult to recover butanol from the fermentation medium. Ethanol, it is much easier. Even through fractional distillation, ethanol can be removed easily, but butanol cannot be removed, because butanol, although since it is not soluble, it is sparingly soluble in water, it has problems from recovery with the water. So from the fermentation medium, there are several technologies like gas stripping, liquid extraction, solvent extraction, supercritical CO2 extraction can be implemented to remove butanol. Imagine a product with such a low yield, and applying such expensive products makes the entire process of biobutanol a little not feasible at this point. But with more research and development coming up, people are now trying to enhance the process of product recovery with genetic engineering. New microorganisms are being made that can withstand the butanol yield and will not suffer from the product inhibition. And then the butanol production could be more cost effective and feasible over ethanol. But thank you so much for bringing up this question. Much appreciated.
Another question comes.
What are the other alternative sources of aviation fuel? Aviation fuel can be Fischer-Tropsch technology. Fischer-Tropsch technology is a catalytic process that uses different metal catalysts to use syngas as a precursor to produce different aviation fuel. Like biokerosene. Kerosene that we use is actually one of the aviation fuel. And kerosene can be produced from Fischer-Tropsch catalysis as well, and if not from fossil fuels. And hydrogen is also one of the liquefied hydrogen is also one of the fuels that is used in aviation, that can also be produced from we discussed about different methods of hydrogen production. One of the green methods is hydrothermal gasification, photo fermentation, dark fermentation using microorganisms that can be utilized.
Okay, I think no other questions, sir. Okay, so thanks again, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. It was a really pleasure to be participating in this event and sharing what we have learned. I hope it was useful for everyone. And please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'll have my email posted in this chat box. Do not hesitate to contact me on email or on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Once again, I really thank the Vice Chancellor sir, as well as Dr. Ranjita ma'am, Kundu sir, as well as Dr. Mahapatra for their kind invitation. Thank you so much.
Sir.
Take care. Namaste.
Okay.
Okay. So, dear participant, next session will start from 1:30. Okay, so link is the same. so you can join at 1:30. And you please
Thank you.
fill the attendance sheet. So I have provide the link here. Okay, so those who are not filled, please fill the attendance.
Thank you, Anu.
Yeah, so again we will meet at 1:30 p.m.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
sure, sure, sir. Okay.